Phil, I briefly heard you talking about just how the complexion of this draft can change depending on what Boston does. There's talk of Ricky Rubio potentially getting traded with Minnesota, packaged with the 5th pick there.
Oh, I didn't hear that one yet.
Yeah, so there's potentially moves there. Masai Ujiri has been vocal about the 9th overall pick. And, like, there's nobody really better to talk about the draft than you, Phil. Like, this is your baby. This is your thing.
I'm so excited.
I'm here for the trades. I'm being upfront and honest. I know Ben Simmons is going number 1. I know Brandon Ingram's going number 2.
But depending to who, right? We've heard some Jimmy Butler, Chicago, LA. Who knows if that happens?
No, Chicago's not trading Jimmy Butler for the 2nd pick in this draft.
What if they also give him D'Angelo Russell? They can't say no to that. D'Angelo Russell. I don't know if you're rebuilding, you have D'Angelo Russell, Ingram, and Bobby Portis. That's where you begin. If you're already letting go Noah and Powell, you're already saying we're kind of going the other way. Does a guy like Jimmy Butler really want to be part of a rebuilding process? That's another thing to consider.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. I think both teams kind of say no. I don't know if Chicago's rebuilding as much as they are retooling. I think Robin Lopez is a good addition there. Kind of the net trade of Rose for Robin Lopez. I think Robin Lopez, assuming Derrick Rose brings the exact same thing he's brought since his injuries, I think Robin Lopez actually helps them more. Obviously, they need to go out and replace the point guard position, and that would determine a lot of it. But if Mike Conley comes in, for example, I think Chicago's right back to where they were, if not better.
That would be a nice fit.
I mean, but can you really say they're not rebuilding? I mean, Rose is out of town, Noah's out of town, Powell's out of town. Like all the veterans who got them there, like Jimmy Butler
last year. Like I think Robin Lopez is an upgrade there. Jimmy Butler, like he's still in his prime. They're still trying to move forward with that. You got Bobby Portis there. You got Mirotic.
I don't think they have enough right now, though. If you look at Lopez, Portis, and Butler, not much else. Like they need way more than that to be legit, right?
Yeah, well,
way more.
Yeah, you need way more to get past Cleveland. But I think honestly, if you add Mike Conley to Jimmy Butler to Robin Lopez, if Mirotic takes a step forward and Bobby Portis comes in. Maybe you make a run at a guy like Nick Batum. Like I think you can get to the position that they were in before, which is you are competing. You're trying to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe something breaks and you get some luck going your way. I think they're too far away from a full rebuild, and I don't know if that's the direction Chicago is looking to go.
I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. I think when you look, again, it's one of these situations where when you look at the ceiling of who they have now, like, yes, things could roll properly, but I think that has too low of a ceiling. I would totally just go to LA if I'm Chicago and just be like, give me who I want. And now I have that front, because if I'm sitting here, I'm like, how old's Butler now? 25, 26?
Yeah.
About that?
Like 27.
Okay, 27. So even though he needs to win now, he's not going to wait for Bobby Portis and whoever's coming through the pipeline to make that happen. If you can get Ingram and Russell and then build those guys slowly, that makes sense, because the ceiling of those three guys with Lopez is immense. And then Butler to LA kind of makes sense. They keep Clarkson, I guess, and then sign a free agent, like at least a free agent destination at that point, right? I think Jimmy Butler next to Julius Randle actually isn't terrible. If they can pick up like a Bismack Biyombo kind of center to make up the defensive lackings, or ideally a Hassan Whiteside, right? Like if we've heard him rumored, and imagine you pull in a DeMar DeRozan. I know this hurts for Raptors fans, but imagine you start Clarkson, you have DeMar DeRozan. You have Jimmy Butler, who I really like next to DeRozan, actually.
God, that's not a lot of shooting.
Well, especially...
No, but I definitely see where you're going.
And then you have Randall, and then you have... So it starts becoming more interesting, because for me, look, if I'm the Lakers, I'm someone who believes in the draft, and I build through that. So I wouldn't trade your guys. I like where they're going, and poor internet signal. And I like where they're going, but at the same point, I think they can't rush this. Like, the only reason you rush this is if you know that KD is going to sign with you if you landed one of those big names. Like, KD's going yes, you trade for Jimmy Butler, but if you're not, you're trading away an 18-year-old Brandon Ingram for a 27-year-old Jimmy Butler, and you're not ready to win around him. That's a problem for me.
No, I definitely hear you there, and it's tough because really, if you have this "are you contending or not" mentality, there's so many teams. Like you can argue, 27 out of 30 teams need to rebuild. Like they should either be bottoming out or not. I think there is something to be said for trying to remain competitive. I can't see. I get what you're saying about LA being a destination, but I really think of Chicago. If you add Mike Conley, you have Jimmy Butler there, Robin Lopez. You have cap room to go after another player as well.
But you just said your cap room. Well, some of it Mike Conley, right? And then so what you're basically saying is I require picking two stars out of the Netherverse to match with Jimmy Butler. I can say that about almost any team. Like, but the realistic part is, are you going to land two of the top free agents in Chicago?
Right.
I mean, look, if you landed Al Horford and Mike Conley, I'm there with you. I for sure am, and I think that actually fits really well with Bobby Portis.
Yeah, and I think there's a potential for that.
Look, Chicago is one of those cities that players do want to go to. So let's not pretend we're talking about Sacramento or Philadelphia at this point, right?
Dallas is the worst. Dallas is the worst. I got to mention this every time. They've never signed anyone in 35 years. No one. No one goes to Dallas.
Hey, they got an interview with Hassan Whiteside, though.
Yeah, but Hassan Whiteside, I think that's a good play. Like speaking of Dallas, just for 2 seconds, since we're jumping all over the place, if I'm Dwight Howard to Hassan Whiteside, as long as Dirk's not running away, I want to go there. Because I'm sorry, if you're Hassan Whiteside, you can look outside and see Dirk Nowitzki, Chandler Parsons, and Wesley Matthews bombing around you. I'm okay with that.
Well, Chandler Parsons might be gone.
Okay.
Chandler Parsons is likely gone. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. And the other destination that I really like for him, and I know, Phil, this is going to excite you, but they're talking about Hassan Whiteside. He's going to have a meeting with Portland.
Oh.
And I personally,
nice. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot because Portland, you got the talented backcourt there with McCollum. And
I'm a big fan of what he brings. And I'm being serious. I actually really like Mason Plumlee.
Oh.
Bro, I mean, I like him too, but you don't like him like that. Moses Plumlee is not going to be your starting center here. Like
there are so many Plumlees, and there's another Plumlee brother coming to the draft this year. I'm forgetting his first name, but so that's going to be 3.
God.
And they all went to Duke.
Just call them 4. No. There's already been 3 drafted, I think. And
number 3 is at Duke, and I think he's getting drafted potentially this year.
Okay, so I think what has to happen now then is Steven Adams has to go to his family and be like, listen, we got to send some of our 18 children into the NBA draft and just see how many could stick. Because if they can just last 2 out of 17 decent chances, then they've matched the Plumlees.
His sister is an Olympian, by the way. Like, was she like stone thrower or something? Shot putter. Is the official 21st century way of saying thrower. They throw stones in New Zealand, But I got to throw something at you guys. Chad Ford is saying that Thon Maker is going to go to the Bucks at number 10. How old is Thon? How old is Thon? How old is he?
I've heard between 22 and 23, all the way to 19. Like he's another Bismack Biyombo / I'm just lying about my age. At least he's that 30-year-old 6'9" guy who played in a Canadian high school game. But look, it matters, right? Because if he's 18, 19, he's really raw at this point. Like I know everyone's seen the highlight reels, but he needs, he's like a Bruno, right? He needs Bruno Caboclo, for those who don't know, my second love. So he needs a couple years to really develop. And I don't think if he's really 22, 23, like guys like Buddy Hield and Chris Dunn get the pass because they're ready for the NBA more or less right now at 22. If you're not ready at all, I mean, I guess but if that's the case, he can't go lottery. Right? Like in lottery, there's too many good players. I mean, he's going to jump over a guy like Deontay Davis? That's impossible. Scal? That's impossible.
He's not going top 10. I respect Chad Ford, but he's probably going to try to edit that tweet 3 years down the road and say he said something else. So I'm not going to lose my mind. Like going to the Bucks at 10. There's no way that the Bucks do that. Like if
they gave Jason Kidd an extension.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
they did.
And there's way too many guys out there at 10. Like there is a plethora of names that is just like I don't even know how he's even in the conversation. Like, look, even if he was 18, legit 18, it's still a brutal pick at 10. That's so high. There are look, do they really need a guy who does what he does? I guess if he's able to do what he does in his highlight videos, sure. But what we've seen in camp, probably not. Like, there are some point guards. Like, look, they don't have a legit point guard right now. Let's not, beat around the bush with this.
Man. Giannis.
Okay, fine. But someone who can defend the point guard then. You know, like I get it. And I actually like him at point guard, so I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to disagree with you. But you need someone who can kind of Mario Chalmers kind of world, who can go in, defend the one, shoot the three, stretch the floor. Because if the Greek Freak's going to be attacking, you need his balance on the other end. So some interesting things. We saw Chad Ford saying how the Raptors are really, and I'm so happy they said this, are really interested in Skal Labissière, who basically, I think he's going to be better, but some people are saying his comp is Channing Frye. Let's just say you get 20-year-old Channing Frye. Is that what the Raptors need?
Yeah. Like, honestly, like, you need, because this isn't I know you disagree with this, but this isn't like a particularly strong draft. And I think if you can get somebody like a Channing Frye that has been reliable over their whole career, I don't personally like that comp because, and Phil, we've talked about this off camera, I don't like how slow Skal's release is. Everything looks so methodical. Whereas Channing Frye, a big reason why he's able to be so successful is he's so tall and he's got that quick release. Like it's almost like Ray Allen where it's in a phone booth. Skal, it just looks slow and methodical. And I think the league is kind of riddled with guys that like don't have that elite skill. And
but he's also a 7-footer, right? And he's releasing from here. Like not many people are going to get out to that. And he's more athletic than Channing Frye. When you watch him run, I think he can block more shots than Channing Frye. So if he comes in, is a little bit more athletic, can block shots next to JV, can stretch to hit the three. I mean, that does make sense in terms of what they need, right? Yeah. Okay, so I mean, since it's starting in about 7 minutes, let's go with our last.
A couple things.
Oh, sorry.
A couple things. Let's go with the first rumors. We're hearing Ian Begley of ESPN New York said that Minnesota offered number 5 and Zach LaVine for Jimmy Butler. And we're also hearing that Sacramento has been aggressively pursuing D'Angelo Russell.
That's an interesting play. Yeah, so trying to trade him. I mean, if you're going to trade him, if I'm the Lakers, I'm demanding Cousins because I know you're in rocky waters. I'll be like, cool, I'll give you Russell. I'll give you would I give the second pick in Russell for Cousins? Do you do that if you're LA? Second pick in Cousins?
Oh, hell yeah. I throw in Randall if I want to. For Boogie? What? Are you kidding
Phil,
me? Like you're
Boogie.
Talking about potential.
It's Boogie.
I know it.
Yeah, you're talking about potentially the best center in the NBA. Like
he's healthy.
It's my problem.
Okay.
People
okay.
Honestly, with the draft picks, it feels like it's like the mystery box in Family Guy, where it's like a boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
What I'm saying then is, I think LA does that.
Woj speaks. The Kings have acquired the 22 pick.
Oh, that's the old pick for Marco Bellinelli, which I like that trade for Charlotte. I think that's a really good move, going out and getting a proven shooter.
And it's another draft pick for a team that needs to rebuild, so it's not terrible on the other side. Okay, so if that happens, if you're Sacramento and you know Boogie may want to be out of town, if you're rebuilding around D'Angelo Russell, Ingram, and you still have a couple young guys, like Kentucky boy, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. They drafted last year, the center. I mean, that's not terrible to build around if you really think you're going to lose Cousins. And does everyone really think Cousins is sticking around?
I mean, he's under contract. So, yeah, I think they're going to try to make it work. And I think everything that they've been trying to do, like I wouldn't be surprised if getting the 22nd pick, if they are going after D'Angelo Russell, I wouldn't be surprised if that's not a move to try to make that package happen.
I think he's still going to be really expensive though. Like if I'm if I'm the Lakers, I'm not giving him up on the cheap. Like I would much rather keep him and smooth out any interpersonal deals than give him up on 50 cents in the dollar. Like if you're going to offer me something legit, like if you're talking like a Nerlens Noel kind of guy, then that starts being interesting, which by the way, I think would be fantastic for both teams. But then, have him next to Randall, next to Ingram, that starts being a really interesting front court going forward. And, okay, so speaking of trades, do you guys think Boston picks or trades, if you just have to call it now? And you don't have to choose who they traded. Trade?
I'm going to say trade. And funny enough, Woj just tweeted that Chicago and Boston are still talking about a Jimmy Butler deal.
Yeah. It still kind of hurts, but I still think that Cleveland should try to get in on that with Kevin Love, by the way. And I know it hurts since you're right, Cleveland. No way.
I mean, obviously, every Cavs fan would, or not every Cavs fan, but I think the bulk of Cavs fans would be willing to do that. I don't think there's any way in hell Chicago would trade Jimmy Butler to Cleveland, especially being in the division. You have to see them 4 times. You have to give LeBron James his perfect tool to longevity there.
Okay, so you're saying front court of Jimmy Butler, LeBron, and Tristan Thompson would just wreck. Actually, yes, it would. So that's a correct statement.
There you go.
Let's take questions from the audience, which is always a good thing. This is from Matt Birmingham on Twitter. Talking about Jamal Murray, of the likely 3 to 8 spot, which is the best fit for his development?
Well, I think Minnesota, honestly. Like, I think if you can put him next to Rubio and allow him, I mean, the problem is I guess Zach LaVine starts the 2, and then Jamal Murray, best case scenario, is kind of their 6th man off the bench, play some backup point, play some backup 2. I think that's a great culture there with there's a lot of athletes around him to kind of cover up for him. I think, because Phoenix makes no sense because they have shooters, they have point guards. Boston, he would get lost in the mix as well. And then if you go down to 6, New Orleans, I think he would just be asked to do a little too much to kind of keep Anthony Davis. So my call is Minnesota for that reason.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Phil said. As much as I like Zach LaVine, I don't think he's the same type of knockdown shooter that Jamal Murray is. And I just think that Minnesota, with what they have, I'd really be aggressively trying to trade Zach LaVine and the 5th pick. I do believe in LaVine. I think he is a tempting piece, but you got to get some sort of established talent there. Otherwise, you have too many young guys that are developing bad habits. This will be Wiggins' 3rd year. If you have just young guys, this will be Wiggins' 3rd year on a bad losing team, developing bad habits, things like that. And I think that's something that you just have to avoid.
Yeah, I think you have to factor in. I think Wiggins and Murray are friends from the Team Canada scene for many years now. So that probably comes into play.
Yeah, there's a connection there.
And then technically, I know I keep harping on this, but Minnesota technically geographically is more north than Toronto and have more Canadian players on it than Toronto. So if that happened, Minnesota is the north. By technicalities, it's true.
Portland's up there too. Portland
is, but they don't have Canadian players. So in terms of other, so I'll let.
I got to bring something up. We haven't brought this up yet. Jeff Teague, George Hill.
Oh man, I love the trade for Utah. I think George Hill, fantastic player in front of Dante Exum as he makes his entrance to the NBA. He can play both the 1 and the 2, knock down the 3. He gives him another ball handler. They can play Exum and him together. With him, Alex Burks, Gordon Hayward, just a plethora of ball handlers, which in today's NBA really makes him special. He adds veteran presence on a team that's super young. I don't know if I super got it for Indiana. And I I was okay with it because I like the draft for Atlanta, but it's rolling the dice. But all these guys are up for free agency, so I think Atlanta, they knew they weren't going to sign him. They wanted Schroeder. May as well roll the dice on the number 12 pick, I think it was, unless I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, it was 12 pick in the draft.
Yeah, so I think. I think it was a great trade for Utah. I think it's a wait and see with Indiana. But sticking with Indiana, there was the other trade, which Justin was very pumped about, Thaddeus Young being traded from the Nets to the Pacers, the 20th pick. Justin, I know you were two hands fist pumping on this one. Do you want to say why you loved it so much?
Well, I didn't totally get the first Jeff Teague trade. Oh, hang on. Oh, never mind. I thought a trade just went down.
You wear the fake Woj accounts, everyone.
Yeah.
No,
it
was Stein. Just, look for the check mark. I think Thad Young fits really well with what Indiana's trying to do. He doesn't have 3-point range, but he is a very good mid-range shooter. Good defensive player. He's tough. If they're going more up-tempo, Jeff Teague is the right point guard for that system. So with that in mind, having Thad Young who can run, you got Miles Turner, who's a very mobile big. You got Paul George. Don't love the fit of Monte Ellis, but there's still the potential to trade
tiny
him.
In that backcourt, by the way, although they were tiny last year. At least George Hill can pick up a 2, right? Right,
because he has the long wingspan. But I think they're one piece away now. I think they're legitimately one piece away from being in the mix of being an Eastern Conference Finals team, as long as they add the required depth.
Maybe like a Courtney Lee or a Flalo type of 2-guard to play next to him. And
not a Flalo, but what a Flalo used to be when he was in.
Okay, so like Courtney Lee, because I actually liked Courtney Lee last year personally. And then you could have Ellis as a spark plug off the bench, which I think at this point of his career is kind of his optimal spot, being just that guy who comes in, just bang, 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 gets you 6 to 8 quick points and lets your starters rest.
Yeah,
there's gonna be a lot of although I was gonna say a lot of pressure on Turner, but you still have Mahiney, you still have Jordan Hill, so you have some actually a very athletic long team. So yeah, this team's gonna run. I'm not sure how that means if they make the playoffs, because as we've seen with many teams, just because you can run in the regular season doesn't mean the playoffs going to work out for you. You still need to be able to shoot. Although Turner has a nice mid-range game, so does Thad. Paul George can shoot. Yeah, so there's enough guys who can do it. It's an interesting trade. I don't think it really moves the needle in terms of turning them into a power, but I don't like in the East. I still think there's that big kind of Cleveland and then everybody else. I don't think there's anyone even close to on their level, and I'm not even saying this just to appease you and your fandom, but honestly,
it's a logical opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
why are people booing Adam Silver, man? He hasn't done anything controversial yet.
So,
is it just tradition?
Let me bring this up. Mark Stein is saying ESPN sources say Philadelphia is offering Noel the 24 and 26, and Covington for Boston's number 3 pick.
You have to do that if you're Boston.
I mean, you go for Jimmy Butler first, but if you miss on Butler, then you do that.
You're picking up 2 more first-round picks and Nerlens Noel, who fits a need on your team. You desperately need shot blocking if you're.
Yeah, but the Jimmy Butler, you agree that the potential trade for Jimmy Butler would be better, right?
Yes, because they're ready to win now.
Right.
I still I still think they would need to address that need. They could do it in free agency, with the aforementioned Biyombo, but or Whiteside, whatever,
or Al Horford. Even.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, look, this is the interesting part of this draft as well, right? There are so many players, but there's so many great players in free agency. I mean, we're talking about LeBron will probably stay, KD, I'm thinking stays, but there's still a lot of guys Paul Millsap could still be traded. I've heard rumors of him going to Toronto for the pick and a little bit more. Al Horford. I mean, Atlanta is in a lot of change. You got rid of Teague. They're getting the 12th pick. They could get a nice power forward who needs a little bit of work at that point. I think they could be a big player. There's so many teams like Chicago, Boston, Atlanta, teams that really could just go for it all. Even Sacramento's in that world. I mean, I don't think outside of Philly that any pick is legitimately guaranteed. Like I think Ingram goes number 2, but I think there is so much out there because in my opinion, picks are worth way more. It's kind of like buying a new car, right? As soon as you see the car, like in your mind, it's worth the money. As soon as you drive out a lot, you still have the car, but it's worth slightly less. And I think that's the same thing with picks. Like if you trade the number 2 pick before Ingram comes, he's worth I don't know, like an 85 and 100. As soon as you pick him, to me, he's an 80. And so if I'm the Lakers, if I really want that star and win now, because I don't think they have the guts to really wait on a development. I think that they're really hoping that Chicago says, like, you know what, let's just do it. Butler for the number 2 and a little bit else. And Chicago just sits there. They're like, well, I'm going to build forward. Like, I think the big thing about this year's draft is I think there's already a ton of trades, but there's going to be way more. I mean, look, the Thunder have made Serge Ibaka available. Don't tell me that doesn't change the playing field on a lot of teams. For a good contender, Serge Ibaka could definitely make the difference. The Kings, you never know what they're doing. They have the 8th overall pick. I don't even think they know what they're doing. But, it's a high enough pick that you could, a guy like Buddy Hield could fall, and a guy like Buddy Hield to a playoff contender makes a lot of sense. Did you guys see the picture of from yesterday? It was like Jack Armstrong in front of the board with the Boston Buddy Hield pick. There was kind of like, is that kind of like the Dikembe Mutombo giving away that Philly would get the number 1 pick before it happened?
It's definitely going to happen. I want to come out and say it's going to happen.
Buddy Hield is going number 3.
Dunn is going to go. It was Dunn, right? Not Buddy Hield.
No, sir, it's Buddy Hield.
Oh, yeah, Buddy Hield. All right, let's stick with it. That's not what I was thinking, but I'm going to stick with it. Buddy Hield.
If he goes there, that changes everything.
The Sixers. He's going to the Sixers.
Buddy Hield to the Sixers?
Because the Sixers are going to mess that up.
Oh, no, don't trade to number 3, then take a 20-year-old just shooter. Oh, man, come on.
Yeah.
No, you can't do this. No, you have to take Chris Dunn. They love Chris Dunn. They've been talking about him. If they're trading Noel and all them, I guarantee you Chris Dunn is going to be their point guard, because for that exact reason why I said that Milwaukee still needs a point guard, this is why. Even with Ben Simmons handling the ball a ton times, they really want to have a guy who can play, and Dunn can come in, play legit defense, 6'4", 6'9" wingspan, can shoot, bit streaky. But I think Embiid has just been cleared for 5-on-5 full contact. Mm-hmm. If he can come back, still a huge if, with a guy like Ben Simmons, with a guy like Chris Dunn, to me, that's awesome. And then you still have and you still have Okafor, right? Like, who knows? Maybe he goes to a team that's more interesting. I mean, do the Lakers really not want Okafor? Or, I mean, maybe Boston. Like Boston's been pretty quiet, but I don't know. Like we've talked about this off camera. Like, Okafor, because he was playing with Noel, didn't necessarily have the best position to showcase all of his talents. And so because of that, maybe some teams look at him and be like, if we create the right system for him, we can get him, we can get him the cheap and really maximize.
He is talented. He did produce well offensively for a rookie, but his concerns, which are rebounding and obviously defense, are super concerning. His defense is so much worse than anybody anticipated it being. You certainly can't write him off, and I think he'll have a place in the league.
But if you put a guy like that next to a guy like Kenneth Faried to make up for those things.
But we still Kenneth Faried's an awful defender too. So I know what you're saying, but I don't think a power forward can cover for a center. I think a defense from the center position is so important because they're the guys that are typically anchoring the paint. We saw we don't even have to go further back than the finals. With Kevin Love as a power forward, it doesn't matter if you have a defensive center. Teams are still going to expose you. They're going to drag you out in the pick and roll. And if that weakness is at center, I think that weakness is so much greater. I just don't think that you can get away with that in the modern NBA. I think you can I think there's still a market for him. There's still potential for him to develop, and maybe he becomes like a break-even player. But I mean, you're likely looking at almost like a Brook Lopez type scenario with him.
Absolutely. All right. Well, social media has spoken. We've already started. Philly has picked Ben Simmons with the first overall pick. So is that unexpected?
They don't like having Americans going number one anymore. Not at all, eh?
No,
not at all.
No. It's the tri-nation. We have the Canadian, Australian kind of superpowers building up. We're going to have the Wiggins, Murray, Thon Maker, who's 47 years old, against Dante Exums and Bogans. Anyways, so obviously the Lakers are on the clock. So Mark, I'll be kind of on you to let me know if anything pops up in Twitterverse in terms of trades. But do you guys both think Ben Simmons was the way to go for Philly? Because I personally do.
Yeah, he's the best player in this draft. He's so well rounded. He has the highest upside out of anybody in the draft. Him putting on the weight, getting as big as he did for the draft is even more encouraging. It shows. I mean, some players have the frame for it, but they just don't put on that weight. I don't think his jumper is broken by any stretch of the imagination. It's not good, but it's not something that needs to be broken down and reconstructed.
I've seen it in workouts, honestly, and go watch some tape of his old stuff. He has it's a funny little flick release, but I don't hate it. Like, it's kind of like what you were saying. Like, is he going to be an elite shooter? Maybe not, but do I think he can at least get to how LeBron James is at this point? Like, even sooner? Yeah.
I'm worried that I think he jumps off the wrong foot a lot. Do you notice this around the rim? He goes off the right leg and right arm.
Well, he's ambidextrous. He can make it happen.
It's very odd. It's very unusual. I'm hoping.
I kind of like it though. I think you draw fouls when you do weird.
The only guy I know who does that is Steve Nash. So I don't know. Whatever works for you, but it's quite unique.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with him at point guard, is anyone else kind of interested to watch Philly play Milwaukee now with Antetokounmpo at point guard and Ben Simmons at point guard? I kind of feel that no,
that's not going to happen. But
no,
it's going to happen eventually.
I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not excited to watch Philly yet. We'll see what happens with the rest of their summer. But no, I'm not excited for a Sixers game yet. It's going to take a little bit of work before I get to that point.
Justin, there's a question that just came up. Do the Cavs have a pick in this draft? I can't remember.
They do not. They do not have a pick in any round of the draft,
but
they
are trade.
Yes. I think it was the Mozgov
Denver.
Right. They sent them to OKC, and OKC I think traded one of them to Denver. They've bounced around like crazy. They are trying to get a pick in this draft. I don't know if they're going to be able to get a first-round pick somehow. Likely outcome is that they pay cash for a second-round pick.
Gotcha. All right. And are we official with the Ingram pick yet? Are you guys seeing?
Yep.
That's official.
Yep, Brandon Ingram is now a Laker.
And we all think this is a good fit. They have a huge hole at that position. They need to be able to shoot. I think him and D'Angelo Russell could be a really good pick. I mean, twosome. They both have a lot of abilities.
I love that commercial, by the way, the Adidas Foot Locker commercial.
He had to do that for his own PR, right? Just, what's the one mistake? Oh, leave the phones. He just throws into the ocean.
That's brilliant writing. That's really great writing. Like, well done.
I think that'll endear him to the fans. Yeah. I don't know if it necessarily changes how players look at him.
Although apparently, I heard that Nick Young said he thought it was really funny.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, he's just playing football.
Since he tweeted like hilarious or something like that, ... as he was being thrown out of his house due to the fallout and having his car towed.
Yeah, I get you there. All right, so we have Boston on the clock. There are so many rumors going about with these guys. We're hearing them tied to Philly, hearing them tied to Chicago, hearing trade ideas even with, Crowder. Who's some other names? The number 3 pick. We have Avery Bradley. This is the idea to Chicago for. But if they trade for him, like, is there enough left? Like, those guys mattered, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I really like Crowder, and I feel that trading him while Butler is way better. Like, I really thought Avery Bradley was important, and that number, I don't know. Like, I'm probably underselling. I'm probably underselling Butler at that point, but there's something about that seems like that's a fair bit to give up.
Mm-hmm.
But they still might do it. All right. So what do you guys call that Boston does with this one? They're on the clock now. Do you think they're just just waiting for Philly and Chicago just to up their offers?
Yeah, I think they're going to try to drag this out for as long as humanly possible. I think ultimately Chicago makes the right decision and doesn't do this trade. Although we were talking earlier about potential Chicago deals, and I think Boston probably has the most to offer them in terms of rebuilding while still getting a lot of talent for the short term.
Yep.
That being said, I just think ultimately they don't pull the trigger. I think it's too hard to sell your fans on losing Noah, Butler, Rose, all in one summer. So for that reason, I just don't see that trade going through. Although obviously that would be a huge gift for the Celtics. So ultimately, I think they trade with the Sixers and then try to package those late round picks, maybe to move back into the lottery and get another pick or move up.
As much as yes, Butler would be better. I just think that Philly trade makes way too much sense. I mean, if I'm the Philly fan, I'm kind of hoping they would take Okafor instead. I think of Noel because I'd like to have Noel just in case Embiid doesn't work out. Because I think
seems like
well, the thing is, look, you still want someone who can play various positions, and if I trusting one person to play de facto power forward between Nerlens Noel and Okafor, I'm picking Noel because of his agility. So I can put him next to Embiid, and I'm not overly worried about it.
I'm fascinated that Woj has not tweeted out any of the draft picks yet. So I'm like him.
Maybe he's been blocked on some level.
He has his live show. So he's announcing them on his show, I believe. I'm not watching it, but I think he's trying to draw people into that. Just the ultimate screw you to ESPN and trying to pull viewers literally away from them rather than just have them staring at their phones. So
a couple of things on Twitter. We have Chris Dunn's camp believes that Boston will select him and not make a trade. If they do that, Chris Dunn, another point guard in Boston. Dumb. Like, look, yeah. I really like him in a lot of... Look, if he was 19, I think he would be arguably a top... Well, he's already a top 3 pick, arguably, but like he'd be up there, right? But at the same point, it's tough because you really want a guy... Like, is Isaiah Thomas your future? Probably not. Is Avery Bradley your future? Probably not. Is Marcus Smart your future? You kind of hoped so, but probably not. And point guard matters. So do you just take the player you really want and trade the rest? Like, is that the worst way to go? Like, there are a bunch of power forwards who I think, Marquise Chris, Bender is still there. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised, and I know it sounds really weird, if Masai Ujiri in Toronto sneaks up into that top bit if they think Bender or Chris is falling just a bit. Because I think both those guys would be fantastic fits next to JV.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised to see them move up kind of where Sacramento is, or maybe a little bit higher to try to go after the Canadian Jamal Murray. I think that would be something that they might
But if you're
try
taking
to do.
him, like, I kind of get it on some level. He's going to play with Joseph. That's amazing. Yeah, like I guess you could do that, but then you're really saying that DeMar's out of town. Because I don't think you get...
Celtics taking Jaylen Brown is what the word is.
I love that pick. I love it because to me, he's what Jimmy Butler... Like, he's Jimmy Butler at 19. Like, I think he can...
I like that too. I like Jaylen Brown.
Into that. Look, if you... And to me, you don't have to give up all the rest. And look what Brad Stevens has been able to do with so much talent and make it better. Jaylen Brown is not going to be in a position where he needs to do a ton. They still have Crowder there. They still have tons of scoring all around. They'll play great defense. They can play small ball. They can play Crowder at the 4, play Jaylen Brown, allow him to build. He doesn't have to start on this team. I think if that's the pick, that's a fantastic pick. Although that turns the whole rest of the draft, as we knew would happen, into a bit of a frenzy, because you still have Buddy Hield, Chris Dunn, Jamal Murray all available, and Phoenix doesn't need any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so that's interesting. So Phoenix sits there with, if that happens, Phoenix sits there with all the best power forwards available to them, Marquise Chris, Bender, so they take their pick. And then Minnesota sits there, if that happens that way, who can take any of the best guards, or even say, do I want to go with Chris or Bender next to Towns? You know, like there are many options, because if you think about it, we keep saying if they pick Murray or pick Dunn, you have to move this guy. But let's just say, you know, Bender falls in their lap and they put him next to Towns.
Here's the thing I wonder, like picking Jaylen Brown, there's still a chance he gets traded. That would be a Jimmy Butler replacement if Chicago were to make that deal. Would it not? Like if they were picking for Chicago and you had to pick one player, it would be Jaylen Brown. So I'm really curious to hear if this is for another player or not. And we might not hear that until like a minute or two after the pick actually comes in.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, Boston and Toronto are in those spots where I think they're doing better than they should with the talent they have. So trying to get guys to win now is not always my best call. Like, I still think they both need to grow. So if I'm Boston, I would actually live with that pick. I would live with Brown and just walk away.
All right. So what Danny Ainge is saying is that there were not realistic deals, which is so frickin' Danny Ainge. Always asking for too much. At least they didn't select another guard. That's what I have to say. Because if they selected another guard, they'd have a log jam and this big off season where they're talking about adding 3 max players or whatever.
I think it's kind of the perfect
goes out the window.
Yeah. I think it's kind of the perfect fit. Like, I think Marquise Chris would have been interesting at the 4 because he shoots and plays D, but they want to win now. And I think Brown has the NBA ready body, good wingspan, and I don't know. I actually wasn't expecting that so much. I thought he was going to slip. I know some Raptors hopefuls were hoping he would slip to them, but that was never going to happen. I think it's a perfect fit. I think it's a great one. But now we have Phoenix. Actually, sorry, because I'm following so many guys at once. Was that one official?
Yeah.
That one was done. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So now we have Phoenix. Are we all pretty much saying, well, because Jaylen Brown to me was kind of the third guy who would maybe go there, because Phoenix kind of could use a 3 and a 4.
So I think they take Chris. I think they
take Chris too. I think Bender, although Bender's tough to pass up. What's interesting though is then Bender starts, going around like, does he go to Minnesota? I like that fit in Minnesota a whole lot. But then that starts being really interesting with all the best guards slipping down to New Orleans to, as you go down the order, to Denver. I mean, imagine Denver picks up a Dragon Bender. That's a great pick. Sacramento, they can't really take him. Like, will be really interesting for me is, oh man. Okay, hold on, guys. I'm looking at my crystal ball, and I'm going to say something that's going to upset both of you. I'm seeing Jamal Murray, Sacramento.
Oh,
Jamal
no.
Murray, Sacramento.
It's just Nick Stauskas all over again.
I'm sorry, guys.
Here's my prediction. I think Jamal Murray is going to end up in Philadelphia by the end of the night. I think Philly trades Noel to Minnesota for the 5th pick. I think there's some sort of Rubio deal there, or just for the 5th pick, and then Philadelphia takes Jamal Murray.
Same lineup.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure if I like. Did you say Rubio was going to Sacramento?
No, I'm talking Minnesota. I think Philly ends up getting the 5th pick from Minnesota, and then Jamal Murray ends up there. That's my prediction.
Oh, you know what I would really like to see? Best trade ever. Oh, of course, because I say this with every trade I make up. Nerlens Noel to Minnesota, and then the 5th pick down to just back to Philly. Just that simple. Just that simple.
Yeah.
Because at this point, if they can get all the guards they want, like if all the guards are available at 5, including Chris Dunn, you have to think that Philly would think about that. If they were willing to go like Noel plus all these other guys for 3 to get done, if he's available at 5, they would just do Noel.
Yeah.
It's the same rationale. And do you guys think Noel and Towns could coexist, or is there a bit lack of shooting there because Towns has to play 5?
Well, Towns can shoot, right? Like he's a bit of a strength 5, so he's unique there. So I think that there's the potential for there not to be too much overlap. Woj is tweeting that Phoenix will select Bender with the 4th pick.
Ooh, interesting. Can we see Marquise Chris have a slide? Man, I hope he goes to Toronto for Toronto's sake. Don't get ahead of yourself. Please don't pick Sabonis. That's all I'm asking. Do not pick Sabonis for Toronto. Please take him if you're Denver, because I don't want to see him in Toronto.
But how do you really feel? How do you really feel?
Oh, it hurts. Well, Bender, yeah. Well, look, I think that's a great trade, actually. Not trade, pick. I think Bender has a really high upside. I really also like Alex Len. Not everyone loves him, but I think both of those guys together make a really interesting twin tower. And they're both fairly mobile. I know not everyone's the biggest Len fan, but I am.
Well, his game is very bland, but he gets it done. And his numbers really grew this year. I think he'll be a decent player in the league.
But he's like a blue-collar guy who can kind of hit his shots. I don't hate him at all. I think that pick makes sense. I think it was between him and Chris. I think it was probably tough, but I think when you look at Marquise Chris, an interesting comparison I got was actually a little bit bigger Sean Marion. I was thinking about it for a second. And then you hear all these reports out there saying Chris can now play the 3 potentially. I'm like, that's interesting. Because if you can play the 3-4, be 6'10", with a 7'2" wingspan, hit open threes, and play defense, that becomes one of those guys in the modern NBA that everybody wants. And, okay, so Minnesota's on the board. Who's with me, Marquise Chris? Right?
No.
No? Oh,
really?
I got Murray.
I think he's way too raw. I think he's going to struggle for 3 years before kind of figuring it out.
Okay, so you guys are saying done then in Minnesota? Because Tibbs plays defense?
Like I said, I don't think they keep it, but I'd pick Jamal Murray.
I'd pick Murray too.
I'm a believer in Jamal Murray.
And then you're keeping Rubio and trading Levine or 6-man Levine?
Yeah, trading Levine.
Levine becomes redundant, so he's gone.
So Chicago is also trying to acquire the 5th pick from Minnesota. Chicago and Philadelphia are apparently in a bidding war right now.
Okay.
Oh, and Woj says that Thibodeau has Chris Dunn as the number 1 choice on his draft board.
I've been saying this for a while. I think that one's interesting. So if that happens, if they have him, then they have to trade. Oh, could Rubio and Levine get you Nerlens Noel still?
Oh, my God. Okay, so the Sixers are offering the exact same package to the Wolves that they offered Boston.
Okay, so that's Nerlens Noel.
Angelo.
Okay, so that's Nerlens Noel. With the other little picks there.
Yeah, what was that again? Here, let me pull that up. Oh, I can't find that.
I really like the idea of Noel in Minnesota because for me, it lets you stick with Levine. The continuity's there. I don't know. I think that one's tough.
Do you think New Orleans would play well with Thibodeau, though? Do you think that's a good matchup?
Noel, who loves defense and shot blocking, play with Tom Thibodeau? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Thibodeau would love him.
And he's from Kentucky, and Karl-Anthony Towns is from Kentucky. And let's just say that would be a brutal front court to drive against. You're trying to drive against Karl-Anthony Towns, Nerlens Noel in a Tom Thibodeau system. That's tough. Man, I'm liking these picks so far. I think Boston surprised me with something. I wasn't surprised the first 2. Boston surprised me, but I'm happy, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think Bender at number 4 makes a ton of sense, and number 5, I don't know, because the GM in me always wants to pick and never trade. I just love building through the draft. Like, I think, like, if I was come back in another life, I would be Sam Hinkie Jr. But I don't know, Jimmy Butler also, because, you know, we were all kind of quietly saying next year, even with no one else, Minnesota has enough talent that with a little bit of progression, a little bit better coaching, could they sneak into the playoffs? Because Houston looks terrible and some other stuff. If you add Jimmy Butler to that team, that's a yes. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they'd have a pretty good shot at it. It would depend what else happens, because there's a lot of teams that weren't great that are kind of looking like they might be better in the near future. Obviously, Memphis, as long as Mike Conley comes back, will be good.
Utah Jazz,
Dallas,
New Orleans.
Utah's a lot better, especially now with George Hill. They're adding Dante Exum. Gobert and Favorites are going to be a year older, so I think Utah's a legitimate playoff team now. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think next year is going to be the return to the Wild West that we saw before. Yeah. Not the West where the 5th seed had the same record as the 8th seed in the East.
Yeah. Okay, so apparently sources are telling our man Woj they're looking Dunn's way.
Unless the trade goes through.
Unless it goes through. Okay, let's just say he's their guy. So that means they're trading Rubio. So I still say, does Zach LaVine and Ricky Rubio get you your choice of centers? Actually, probably gives you more than that in Philly. Like, would Tom Thibodeau not love a front, like a team that has Chris Dunn? Although if you do that, then Zach LaVine, they have no 2. I guess Mohammed has to play the 2 with Wiggins, Towns, and Noel. But that team would play defense with anybody, right? And if you just fill in like a shooter and another Courtney Lee kind of guy, that team is definitely playoffs in my books.
Yeah.
All right, so we're still waiting. Has it been official, boys, or?
No, there's 3 minutes left on the clock. If they do select Dunn, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're keeping him. John Krasinski from AP, great Wolves beat guy, is making that clear as well. The Sixers are off in the farm for Dunn, so just because the Wolves
Sixers love Dunn, and they've made this really clear, right? Yeah.
Right.
So
the fact that he slipped to this position in the draft, I think that's why you're seeing that bidding war.
Which is amazing for the Wolves, right? You have 2 blue chip guys. You could have a third, and there's a bidding war for him, so you could get like $1.50 on the dollar. Because, you know, Chris Dunn, one of the knocks on him is he's 22 years old, right?
We got some news. Chicago and Minnesota's talks for Jimmy Butler broke down. Bulls wanted Zach LaVine, not Ricky Rubio, so that's a no-go for the Wolves apparently.
That makes sense. Oh man, I'd
give up LaVine in 5. I would give up LaVine 5. Oh, Chicago wants Zach LaVine, number 5 pick, which is obviously Chris Dunn. I would do LaVine in 5 for Jimmy Butler,
because then your team looks like, wow, there's no shooting, but you have Rubio, Butler, Wiggins, Towns, and Dieng. Yeah, I guess like there's still issues there. I mean, Wiggins would really have to progress and learn how to shoot that corner 3 for this to be somewhat effective in my mind. But there are some strange. I don't know. I think they get traded. I'm calling right now that Dunn ends up in Philly. Like, I think Philly's just going to give up too much. Like, I think at the last second, Philly's going to be like, I'll give you next year's first on top of it, or something silly like that. I just think he makes too much sense for Philly to pass up. Like, if you want to build, I think having Simmons, Embiid, and Dunn is a really good way to go.
Yeah. I don't know what Tom Thibodeau's doing. Turning that down is insane.
No, it is. And Marquise Chris, a lot of people had him going to number 3 with the Celtics, right? He's in a bit of a slide now.
Yeah.
Like there is 0% chance I think he gets past Toronto. I'm going to call that right now. I think as much as they love their Lithuanian connection, I think Masai Ujiri is a little bit too smart for that. Man, people are loving Bender at 4. Can Phoenix be sneaky good next year, do you guys think?
Phoenix?
The West is so deep.
What's your definition? Yeah, we were just talking about how we don't know if Minnesota can make it.
I mean, you didn't even mention Sacramento. There's so many teams on the cusp. I don't know about Phoenix. I mean, they're trying to get rid of Brandon Knight right now.
Man, this is why I think the playoffs should just be top 16. There's such a disparity between East and West in my mind. It's like if you had to take talent and percentage-wise, I would say it's like 80-20. Like, maybe that's being a bit brutal, maybe 70-30, but I don't know. It just seems like when you're looking at who is really a great player, they're all in the West outside of anyone who's on the Cavs. I mean,
Paul George.
Look, okay, fine, Paul George, and I love me some Paul George, but he would fall into that 20 to 30%, right? With LeBron, with Kyrie, with Love, as much as it hurts me to say it.
So Mark Stein saying that Chris Dunn is the pick at 5. Initial whispers are that Minnesota is more likely to trade him than to keep him, which if the Jimmy Butler trade has officially been shut down, I guess that would mean to Philadelphia. Although with stuff being leaked like this, you never know if it's Minnesota trying to get the temperature of the room there, because the outcry already is just ridiculous.
Here's a question for you guys. Yeah. What's R.C. Buford doing right now?
Waiting for Thon Maker to fall to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically that.
Yeah, I think there's enough players in this draft who have that kind of Fran Fraschilla saying of 2 years away from being 2 years away. And there's a lot of nice gems that he can start stashing. I don't think they're going to end up with a player who is like this amazing player right now, comes in and, starts right away or anything like that. But I think they could have a guy that makes up for when Timmy finally decides to hang him up for real.
Woj just tweeted, Minnesota has been shopping Ricky Rubio throughout the week. His future in Minnesota is likely coming to an end.
Oh.
Okay.
End of an era.
I love me.
Okay, so.
I mean.
Okay, so if you guys had to pick Ricky, forget about trades. Mm-hmm. Forget about who they get back. If you were Ricky Rubio's agent and you could choose where to go, where's Ricky Rubio's best situation?
Yeah.
And
so a team
how about San Antonio?
So this is a team that has to like to run and shoot the three around him. Is that fair to say because of his style? So I think San Antonio is an interesting play, but I think in the half court, I don't think he would bring what they want in terms of attacking the way some of their point guards have. If I had to pick a team, I mean, the Philly, I think Philly's a terrible fit actually because of Simmons.
No shooting.
And
no shooting. It's two guys that don't have outside shots.
Who I don't hate? You know who I don't hate? Lakers. If they wanted Russell to play the 2 and they let Clarkson walk and let Rubio,
I hate that. That's too small. Ugh, that's
Clarkson's
way too small.
6'5". No, I mean, sorry, Russell and Rubio's 6'4", so that's legit size.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to be in a big city. I don't think he wants the glamour. It's not his style.
No, but I'm just thinking if you're going to trade a guy like that, okay, well, Sacramento, I guess, is one of those team. Well, if the Knicks hadn't have traded for Rose, I would have said the Knicks wouldn't be terrible. Milwaukee Bucks. That makes sense.
Well, again, that's a team with no shooting, so I don't know if I love that. It is better. It is much better than MPW.
And Giannis wants to be the point guard, and Baldwin makes more sense. Interesting.
Assuming that Conley leaves Memphis, it's an obvious fit with him and Marc Gasol. So there's one.
Buddy Hield, 6 to the Pelicans, is what the vertical is saying.
Okay, I'm going to begin to say why I hate that. that's not enough to keep Anthony Davis there. After Buddy Hield is like your.
He's got 5 years left on his deal, man. Like he's not going anywhere
until he demonstrates. I think he makes sense because he's a 3-point shooter. I think, look, you're keeping Drew Holiday. You're keeping that position fine. I don't know if I wouldn't have just gone Murray there. Like, I guess he's ready to win now, and you want to win. And you're basically saying Eric Gordon's out of there. Here's your replacement at the 2. It's not terrible. I think Marquise Chris would have really tempted me. But it basically would have been between Murray, Hield, and Chris. So, okay, I can see it because it makes sense with who they have. I think if Holiday is a healthy point guard next to him, I think those two make sense. Yeah. Oh, and by the way.
My God, look at these shoes. Dunn is just, he's got the Gucci shoes on with the sparkles. God damn.
Oh, and by the way, Justin, you don't seem to be the only one in the Twitterverse who thinks that Minnesota should be giving up LaVine in the number 5 pick.
People are losing their damn minds. Watching Wolf's Twitter just self-destruct because there's been the people that think that Thibodeau wasn't the right person for this time. Obviously, he's going to be so much more aggressive. Woj just tweeting that Murray's going 7th to Denver.
I like that.
I do.
Next to Moutier, he's a shooter next to a driver. Ooh, which so now we have that's knocking a lot of the names off the board. So
there are basically no Americans on Denver besides Kenneth Faried.
So basically, if that happens, I think that's a great trade. I think that's a great place for him. There's a lot of nice shooters. That team could be good quick. So that's another team in the West we haven't even brought up, right? And with all their centers and everything. So Marquise Chris continuing to slide, number 8. To 8, that makes very little sense. If you have Cousins and I don't know why I keep blanking on his name. It's one of my favorite guys from Kentucky. Why am I blanking? Their center. Willie Cauley-Stein. So they still have him. I think he makes no sense. Oh, I see what you're talking about, Thon Maker on Draft Express. He's listed at number 10 to Milwaukee, which is really funny. Oh, how much did Scal slide all the way to 15 in this? Deonta Davis. There's still some nice guys out there, but if you Jacob Poeltl, I don't think makes sense. If you're Sacramento, this is kind of the worst case scenario because one thing you didn't need was a forward, and that's kind of what's left. I'm calling DeJounte Murray or Taurean Prince or Wade Baldwin, one of those guys.
We're starting to get into a range where I do not know these people.
Snotty, where's Snotty? Snotty's supposed to be joining us any minute now. Because Phil is not speaking my language.
No, he could make up a player. I'd be like, definitely good fit.
Phil, give us comps. Give us comps. Who these guys remind you of? That helps.
All right, cool. Your guys' job is to get back on social media and make sure James is on his way. So when we're talking about Buddy Hield, we're talking about a 6'5" shooter. He's from the islands, Barbados, I believe. I'm probably going to get that wrong. But he's a knockdown shooter. He took his team in college way past where a lot of people thought he would. He's 22 years old, like Dunn, so he was not the best player coming in, but really taught himself to be a lights out shooter. So this is a guy who can create a little bit of his own shot, but is, I guess, I don't want to call it a bigger, more muscular Curry without the handle. It's, I don't know, a great shooter, 6'5", 6'9" wingspan, very athletic. So, yeah, I mean, he's kind of like a more robust Jamal Murray without the point guard skills, I guess.
Here's what I got to ask. Marquise Chris, if he's available, that's the pick, right, for Toronto?
I would have to say so because, in terms of what everyone's talking about, in terms of upside, he definitely has it. He has the ability. People are kind of talking on different levels. picture like a bigger Sean Marion, picture a kind of Serge Ibaka kind of floor kind of thing they're talking about. He's extremely athletic in most of his workouts. His head was at the rim. He's a legit 6'10". He's got a 7'2" wingspan. He has a great shooting stroke, can hit corner threes already, and he's just beginning to touch on his ability. He's not a 5. He's a 3-4, a big 3, a regular size 4. And I think we put him next to JV, he does exactly what you want. I mean, if you can take a 6'10" Sean Marion next to JV, you take that, right? With a little bit more of a consistent jumper. So I think you have to take him. I think Skal Labissière is nice as well, but you get way more defensive prowess with Chris. So in my mind, you have to go there. And if they were willing to roll the dice on Bruno when they still were like playoff hunters with DeMar and all of them, I think that's where they go. Because if you want to swing for the fences, as Masai is known to do, this is where you have to go.
Well, he has to. You know, they're the team that's outside of America. They don't get free agents regularly. I mean, behind Kyle Lowry, they haven't really had major free agent signings, so he does have to swing for the fences. He wanted Tyler Ernest bad last time around, and then he went for Bruno when Tyler was taken the pick before by Phoenix. So he's willing to swing.
No, absolutely. I honestly think how everything's falling, I think these are great opportunities for most of these players. I mean, just going back up from where we know it is, Buddy Hield, he's going to get a ton of shots. He's going to have a guy to set him up, and he's going to get guys to rebound for him. Perfect situation. We're looking at Jamal Murray, smaller town Denver. He doesn't have to play point guard. He can play off ball. You have legitimate centers who are great passers. You have shooters in Gallinari and Chandler. You have rebounders in Fareed. To me, he comes in. Exactly. He comes into a great system. It's kind of like just beating you by numbers kind of thing, the same way Utah, Justin and I were talking about before, may not have that superstar, but they have so many great players at every position. They'll be great. Minnesota, I know the continuing talks at Chicago, but a great aggressive 6'4", 6'9" wingspan point guard to bring in the Tom Thibodeau system, match that with Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns. I think that is a fantastic future to look for. Phoenix, I think Bender, maybe I would have gone Chris, but probably not. I think Bender's too hard to pass up. I think him next to Len can make them contenders. And I think Ingram and Simmons are very obvious picks. I don't think what was interesting, I mean, with this draft is it's very big heavy, like big with potential. So I know you're saying, Justin, how after this it's tough to know all of the guys who are coming in and their value. So basically what I'm saying is there's another center in Jacob Poeltl. He's
okay. I personally like Sabonis more than him.
Yeah.
Woj is saying that Marquise Chris has the attention of Sacramento, which would obviously hurt for Raptors fans, hoping that he slips. Guys, I do need to roll out now. It was a pleasure. But yeah, it looks like Jamal Murray, another Canadian drafted top 10 going to Denver, which is exciting. So I'll talk to you guys later, all right?
See you, man.
Perfect.
All right, yeah.
All right, thanks. All right, Mark, I'll continue breaking down some of these guys. If you don't mind just getting on, seeing if Alan and or James are available. I think you have them both.
Of course.
Contact-wise. Cool. So I'll start breaking them down. So we have
left. Talk about Marquise Chris. Yeah.
Okay, Marquise Chris, perfect. So what I was talking about before, kind of a bigger Sean Marion. He really, really raw, one of the youngest players in this draft. So if you're looking for a guy to come in and start right away, he's not your guy. But if you're looking for a guy to be the prototypical power forward in the NBA for years to come, he is. He's got a great athleticism, great. The one knock apparently was he looked a little disengaged in his collegiate career. But in all the interviews I've watched, looks like a very intelligent young man, and he knows what it's all about now. He's talking to the right people, and I think he's going to be a gem. I just think if Sacramento's the team to take him, I don't dislike it. I actually really like it next to Cousins, but then you're going to end up trading someone. And I think I don't know. I don't know if there's enough. If there's enough other players that I'd really go for. Like if I'm Sacramento, look, I want a point guard if I'm Sacramento. So if I'm saying I'm not trading and I want a point guard, one guy I really like, DeJounte Murray out of Washington, also same college as Chris. They were teammates. I think he's a couple years away. I really like Wade Baldwin. He's a 6'4" point guard out of Vanderbilt, Skip Bayless's alma mater. He's got a 6'10" and a yeah, exactly. He's got a 6'10", 6'11" wingspan at 6'4". He's broad, intelligent. I think he can come in right away and be that guy who you want to have run your team. Okay, so I saw you sent it there. Did you get one to Alan as well? I see
yeah. We should have some friends joining us shortly. I almost went to Vanderbilt, by the way. It's like one of the most expensive schools. I couldn't afford the tuition, but I mean, it's an amazing place. Not really known for basketball, but it is what it is. So getting back to Sacramento, I love the documentary. Was it 2 years ago where they went into the war room and you had Chris Mullin, you had Mitch Richmond, you had the owner. It seemed like Vivek had a lot of pull. I mean, it seemed like he had final say, and it's like the first kind of look-in we've ever had in a war room. What did you think of that?
I thought it was interesting. I mean, I think it showed the discontent there in Sacramento. I mean, that owner, it's owners should not be part of any of these processes. There have been so many picks by these Kings that have scratched Nick Stauskas over Elfrid Payton. They needed a point guard. Thomas Robinson years ago instead of guys like Harrison Barnes or Terrence Ross, if I'm remembering my drafts right. I just think they've been weren't they the team that drafted Jimmer also? Yeah, it's one of these dysfunctional teams that you kind of I feel bad. Like a guy like Marquise Chris, problem is he's 18, and if you're worried about a personality and you're going to that type of situation with Boogie Cousins, like I honestly think you want a guy like Baldwin because he's 22 years older, and when you watch his interviews, he is mature. He wants to win. He's got that personality. I just hope that he's not the guy. I think there's a lot of talent to be had either way, and I think Chris at 8, it's one of those situations where it's too much talent to not take at that position. But they don't need that position as well. Although, can he play the 3? Can Rudy look? If he can play the 3 and Rudy Gay gets traded out of town, I can kind of see that. But it's just like, look, Sacramento is not making the same criticism that we are. Like Sacramento's not sitting there like, oh, we're a terrible place to play. We shouldn't bring this kid in. No, like no one's going to say that about themselves, right? So I think that ultimately they go Chris. And I think it becomes one of those situations that I'm just really hoping, like I'm just staring at Twitter and all the chats and just hoping that Chris gets to go to the right place. Also, apparently,
I'll give you one.
The Raptors.
Oh yes, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just saying. Yeah. It was the Mark Stein thing. Since you said his name first, you can go ahead.
Raptors tried to trade 9th pick to OKC today in exchange for Ibaka, but Thunder refused the pitch. Mark Stein.
Well, because basically at that point, I mean, who are they going to pick? Who's better than Ibaka right now for them? And it's really no one. Like if you wanted to get Ibaka and you were Toronto, you would have to start the talks with, oh man, Terrence Ross, the number 9, and someone else. Yeah, there's just too much going on there. Like, I don't think that they can make it happen. But you know what I want to talk about actually is still Jamal Murray. I think he has a chance here. I don't know if you want to call him a rookie of the year so far because I think Ben Simmons is going to have the ball in his hands so much that he, to me, is the guy who is like, it seems overly obvious.
Well, did you watch him last summer in the FIBA Americas tournament? He was amazing.
Not a ton.
He was amazing, and he didn't get to play in the Olympic qualifier. but he was lights out. He was clutch every single game. And, people say there's not a clutch gene, but he has it. He absolutely has it. And I like his personality. He's very modest. He has a way about himself. He seems like he's 5 or 10 years older. Let me put it that way. And being in the system with Mike Malone in Denver, I think it's a really good fit. They have a really great European international feel, that squad. They're young, they're hungry, and they've got the oxygen thing, the elevation thing in Denver. I think they could have a shot at maybe 8 or 9 in the West.
Oh, I definitely think that's possible. And what's great is some knocks to Jamal Murray was that he's not a legit 6'5", and maybe more like 6'4". But because Moutier is so big defensively, he could pick up some ones, maybe. Because Moutier is a good 6'5", 6'6", long arms, and you have some size with Gallinari at the 3. So I think that team will utilize his all-around game really well, because around him you have almost a bunch of specialists, right? You have Gallinari, big-time three-point shooter. You have Moutier as a big-time driver and passer. And, I think having a guy who's kind of all over the place like that is really going to give you the value you want.
And it was mentioned here, they have a ton of white European big men. Nurkic is amazing. He's probably, honestly, he may be the most underrated player in the league. I remember there were a bunch of games last year where he nearly had a triple-double halfway into the third quarter. That's how good this kid is, and being a second-round draft pick and everything. So the team's pretty stacked. They trade a few guys. Fareed may be on the table, but things are really on the up for the squad.
Okay, so I'm just trying to help Mr. Allen here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're gonna have our friend Alan Shane Lewis join us from Below the Hardwood. He's actually a stand-up comedian by trade, based out of Toronto. And he'll be good for some Raptors talk, actually, in a second.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in. He's just apparently having some trouble with Blab.
Yeah, we're using a brand new software called Blab. It's great. You can have, as the guys are already on here, you can have chats at the sideline. And you have 4 people on screen talking together at once. It's really great. It's blab.com, I think is the website. And
blab.im. Yeah, we've kind of been going.
What does IM stand for? What is that? I've never heard that before.
I'm going to say instant messenger, and I'll be wrong.
Yeah.
Why is this just blanking? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to respond to Alan here, and it's just literally freezing my screen while I'm trying to do this. Bum, bum, bum.
Well, I'll talk about the Olympics for a second while you're going. Team USA, let's see, we got Paul George, Kevin Durant, 2 Raptors, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. Have not heard from Kawhi Leonard yet. That's an interesting one. Lillard has bowed out. He's nursing his foot issue that's been ongoing for a year. A lot of guys bowed out. Chris Paul bowed out. Likely LeBron will bow out as well. Tristan Thompson has yet to confirm with Team Canada. So there's about 7 or 8 guys. Carmelo Anthony has confirmed with Team USA. And Draymond Green as well, I believe. So they're waiting on Klay Thompson. And there'll be a few more guys. They usually, I think, take 12 to 14, and they train in Vegas for a week or 2, do some exhibition games. And then the games themselves take place in August. There will be – Alan's joining us here in a second. And there will be an Olympic qualifier in a few different countries in early July worth checking out. France, Canada. They're taking place in the Philippines, some of the games. And I think there was only 1 or 2 spots left for basketball men's to get into the Olympics. And I think Alan is in the building.
Hey.
Oh, he's been trying to. What's up, buddy? It's draft time. Welcome to the war room, buddy.
Alan's surrounded by fog. I don't know why, but
I think it's my aura. I don't know. I think that's what's happening.
Because he's it's being touched by an angel, and as a Raptors fan, are you hoping Chris falls to them so he becomes their angel? Hold on. Oh, no, because he was picked. Sorry. I was just catching up as I was typing. The Kings select Marquise Chris. Okay. We got the Raptors next. We'll do a recap with all your thoughts.
No, let's talk Raptors.
But I want
to let's talk Raptors.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, man. If the Raptors, with who's left, who do you like?
And Allen disappeared. They're likely going to lose Biyombo. The free agency unless he takes the hometown discount. So there's going to be the 4 spot they're going to need to look at. They're pretty stacked at backup guards, with Corey Joseph and the rookie Powell. So, I would absolutely see them going for the 4 spot. Who knows if DeMar DeRozan resigns? That's a question mark too. And, JV will be back at center, of course. So I'm thinking the 4 or the 3.
Yeah, I'm going to. Alan's just getting in here. Sorry, guys. There's some Blab is a little bit new, so dropped connections aren't always that uncommon.
Yeah, the rumor mill is talking about Thon Maker at 10.
Thon Maker at 10 to Milwaukee. What's that all about? Like, maybe they've just been drinking the juice and watching the highlight videos. They see him knocking down threes, and I don't know. So. Phoenix will get Marquise Chris. Ooh. So apparently there's some interesting rumors out there of Marquise Chris actually going to Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can get this. Do you mind reading it off the chat there?
Yeah, sure. So this is thanks for sending these tweets. We're kind of doing 8 things at once. Kings Sun deal potentially. Phoenix Suns get Marquise Chris while giving the Kings number 13, 28 for the rights to Bogdan Bogdanovic and the 2020 second rounder from Woj. Thanks, man.
Oh, barf. The Raptors are going to select Jacob Poeltl. Wow.
I don't know this guy. Who is he? Explain.
He's a 7-foot center.
Okay.
Who has decent skills, but I don't know how he's playing next to JV. I would have gone with Deonta Davis. I would have gone with Scal. The only way I think this makes sense is if they're doing it for Milwaukee and somehow Thon Maker, the Canadian, or if he's Canadian, is going back there with someone else. Yeah, that's a head scratch to me. I saw him there on the mock draft. Look, he's a decent player, but he's at center and he's not that fast. I'm really not super happy with this. I mean, as a Raptors fan, there were a lot of ways I would have gone. Yeah, so the description of the pick so far is unsexy, but he's good.
Messiah.
Sounds exactly what the Raptors needed. And Thon Maker, number 10. Really? It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
That's a YouTube sensation. We don't know his age, and he's a lottery pick. Wow. Yeah. Jason Kidd.
I guess. I mean, there's some interesting bits there. Mm-hmm. Oh man, Giannis and Thon Maker. That's a really interesting. I just don't know. I don't understand. Yeah, well, because look, his ceiling is really high. If he pans out, Thon Maker has some of the best potential in the game. Mm-hmm. So I'll give Milwaukee that one. I don't know where.
But for a lottery pick, I mean, look how skinny he is. I mean, I was talking to Snotty about this last week, and he's like,
But Milwaukee's not very good, right now, so they can wait on him. Maybe that's the idea?
Okay, so we're getting that Orlando will likely select Arvydas Sabonis' son with the next pick.
Again, I don't get it. A guy who can't block shots or shoot the three. What is with all these picks? Scal and Deonta Davis. What's going to happen here is with 11, that means Atlanta is going to get a nice pick at 12. Look, Sabonis could surprise me, but I don't think that happens. I think this is going to be a little bit. Really? Him and Vucevic?
Man, yeah, that's so weird. They're kind of redundant, the two of them.
And there's like no defense at all on that team. I mean, he's a hustler, but there's no shot blocking. Like the two things that he doesn't bring to the table, being Vucevic, they didn't fix with this. I mean, I don't know. I'm really
maybe they're stashing
at a point scratch.
See, Allen's trying.
But I mean,
again.
Yeah, I saw he was doing that. He's just having problems. I'm not sure exactly. So I accepted him already, but he's having trouble getting in there, which is not super uncommon. But man, Phoenix. So Marquise Chris and Bender to Phoenix. So if Marquise Chris, just to say, can play the 3, like I said, that makes a really interesting front court. And they have guards already. That could be the sign of a huge and influential front court there in Phoenix. So let's go back to the Twitterverse. So what's happening with here? Jacob Poeltl. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I'm really going to have to see someone's rationale for this.
Well, okay. I see someone tweeting that he's an insurance policy for when Biyombo leaves.
That's a terrible excuse. So you're spending the 9th overall pick on a backup to one of your players instead of filling a need, a brutally important need at the 4.
Snotty just tweeted, laughing my ass off at Toronto.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That's I don't even know. I mean, if someone out there understands why this was a good pick, because to me this is like a Rafael Araujo kind of thing for me. Like, wow, I'm trying really hard to be in the middle here and not too biased, but I think this is a waste for Toronto. So let's look at the rest of the draft as it's going. So right now we're at number 12. So we have Atlanta. Well, it depends how they go there with Al Horford, Paul Millsap. So again, the interesting part here is there's a lot of good forwards available. So if they think one of those guys are gone, a guy like Skal Labissière or Deonta Davis, I think they both make great sense. What's interesting after them is Phoenix again. Did that 13th pick go in that trade? I forgot if that was one of them. I'm just going out. Yeah, 13 to Sacramento. Interesting. So Sacramento still could land that point guard they wanted, which makes the trade even more interesting. But I think when you overall, why is Allen having such a hard time? It's brutal.
So Jamal Murray is the 12th Canadian ever selected in the first round of the draft.
Okay, nice. So just going off question, out of the guys that are available, who do you think should have gone earlier? I'm going to go with 2 names right off the bat that stick out to me like a sore thumb. One is Skal Labissière, the Channing Frye kind of guy. I thought to Orlando made tons of sense. It's exactly what they needed. And again, to Toronto, I thought those are 2 big whiffs. And the other guy, Deonta Davis, the freshman out of Michigan State, 6'11", 237. He's kind of a Derek Favors kind of guy. I thought he would have gone fantastic. I mean, you could have almost named the team Toronto. Look, depending how Thon Maker turns out, he's really a swing for the fences, so I can't hate on the pick just yet. But I think that was really a weird one. And honestly, those 2 are the guys who I think we're in the range now where the other guys that I really like are probably going to fall. Henry Ellerson from Marquette has really dropped. We've had him, in different mocks all the way as high as I think number 4 or 5. He's probably going to fall. DeJounte Murray out of Washington is another point guard who is kind of like a Jordan Clarkson guy. Taurean Prince is a 6'8" small forward, kind of like a DeMarre Carroll kind of guy, same haircut. and Wade Baldwin. I've been talking about him for a bit, that 6'4" point guard. I think those are the guys that we really are missing right now. What's Twitter saying so far, Mark, in terms of what the reactions have been?
I'm just reading about Thon Maker, and someone said he'd be a clickbait slideshow 7 years from now. So he really is one of those guys that can go either way. I mean, we don't know much about him. It was quite unique seeing him play in Toronto at the Athletic Institute. He played with Jamal Murray actually last year, side by side. So, and also his younger brother, is playing in Toronto as well. So, a lot of question marks. I mean, that's another young stacked team in Milwaukee. So, how they'll use him, he's just another chess piece for Jason Kidd there.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think there's other guys I would have gone with, but when you see what the high potential is, like Thon Maker is one of those ultimate kind of boomer bust guys. He could be terrible, and I mean really bad, but he can shoot, he can block shots, he's 7'1", good wingspan, athletic. So he could be one of those guys that comes in and you put him next to, he's kind of what they need in that front court, actually, because if you're going to keep Monroe, you want some length and shooting next to him. He brings that. I think Jabari Parker, you stay there, but they can't both play. It's interesting because Milwaukee's doing a sneaky job of collecting some pretty good assets. I'm going to give them credit where it's due. I'm trying to hate on the Thon Maker trade more than I am, but it's tough for me to do that, and I really kind of like this. Apparently this idea of Jimmy Butler for Dunn is still not dead, by the way, Mark. They're still going back and forth. Chris Dunn as a point guard. Look, they just got rid of Rose. They need a point guard. Chris Dunn and Zach LaVine. I mean, if that's really all they want.
That's a really, really young backcourt. That's really young. Zach LaVine is 20, 21.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, they already have too many guys. They got to get rid of Pekovic. I mean, that guy hasn't been doing anything for them in over a year. So they have a few roster moves to make. And it's Thibodeau, right? Thibodeau's he is the GM, right, or the president of this team. So these are his moves he's making right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, those Minnesota, Chicago deals. Although I wouldn't really be surprised if Philly comes out of left field to take that from Chicago. I really think that as much as I like Jimmy Butler, if you really want to play a long game and realize Jimmy Butler's 28, a guy like Nerlens Noel for me still is tough to say no to. And I think you could do it without giving up LaVine. I think you could just do Dunn for actually, if they were offering all that, you can get those other picks. So I think possibly, I don't know. It's really tough, man. I don't know. What pick are we at now? 12. So I think what we're going to do is let's go to maybe like 14 or 15, because after that, unless we get Mr. Allen to join us, but things have not been working out super well for him joining this, but hopefully he's listening along. So in the Twitter verse, we have, has it been official Natos? Let's refresh this guy. So what are you seeing content-wise out there? What seems to be the hot topic?
People ranting. A lot of it's about Thon Maker. A lot of it, yeah.
In good ways or bad ways, mostly, I think?
Bad. You know, there's so many question marks with this guy. I mean, in a way, he's kind of the Bruno Caboclo this year, right? So,
yeah. Well, apparently the rationale is, they went with Giannis, and it really hit home. They hit a home run there, so they're like, "Listen, we're picking at 10. I'm going for the fences." And you know what? I can't hate on that, because if he turns out and if Scal turns out, I'd rather Thon. I really like Davis. So he's the one guy that it really hurts me that he wasn't taken by Toronto. It kills me. I'm gonna have to do a lot more work on Poel there, because there has to be something I'm not seeing. I mean, they can't just be saying. I mean, unless they're going to sign someone, I just don't see how you sign a traditional center or draft a traditional center when there's so many fours who can do exactly what you want. Like I am like legitimately critical of that pick.
Well, look at it this way: like Masai Ujiri is one of the most intelligent men in all the NBA. He doesn't do things without a reason. So, is he trying to get rid of JV? I mean, what is he doing? Right? There's some kind of motivation behind this. He doesn't make random decisions. He doesn't make decisions through emotion. So,
you know what?
There's something to this.
I like that idea. I think if it'd be interesting. I think I'm gonna have to plug in a light here. It's getting dark. But JV is one of those guys that. Sorry, I just gotta go to the side before I can plug this in. He's one of those guys that.
Yeah, I mean,
you trade high now on him, right?
Well, that's the thing. He was having the best playoffs of his life in that first and second round before he went down, playing the best basketball of his life, right? So, and then the major ankle injury, which was probably a severe sprain. So, and he's what, 23 now? Yeah, so 24?
Oh, actually, that's an interesting thing, right? Like, does he become one of those guys that maybe you trade for if you're a contending team? Like, if you want like Serge Ibaka and Steven Adams for JV, that's a lot to give up.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, but it's interesting because the one thing I have learned, and to your credit for bringing it up, is to believe in Masai. And I'm not just saying that because he's part of the Raptors. I'm saying I legitimately, as a guy who loves the behind the scenes work of the NBA in terms of trades, in terms of all that, I love what he's done in terms of getting rid of Rudy Gay, in terms of this pick right now they took was from the Bargnani trade, right? So they turned someone who was a complete flop for them into another 7-foot white guy. So we'll see how that goes. But I do believe in what he's gonna what he's gonna do. Is this a longer term play? I would kind of hope so, because I don't understand. So Casey on Poeltl, I think we're all going to struggle with that name until someone says it right one time. I like the young man we picked. He's an excellent basketball player. Mm-hmm. That kind of sounds like you're settling, bud. Lottery.
Who's up next? Who's on the clock right now?
So unless they haven't picked, we have Atlanta. Atlanta is the 12th pick. Oklahoma City has traded Serge Ibaka to Orlando Magic, according to the verdict.
What?
Yep, Serge Ibaka to the Orlando Magic.
Who are they for? Who's it for?
I bet you Sabonis is in that. Oklahoma City. Oh, Sabonis, Oklahoma City. They have so many pieces.
Okay. Explain. What do we got here?
Well, okay. So there's nothing more than just Woj is just like Oklahoma has confirmed that they've traded him. But what I'm saying is Orlando is one of those teams that doesn't have a superstar, but they have a lot of nice around like players. So I think Oklahoma is going to pull back the guy they just drafted, Sabonis.
And also, I got to throw this in here. Right, this is Mark Stein again. Optimism on both sides that the Bulls and Wolves can strike a deal with Jimmy Butler going to Minnesota.
Well, it makes sense. Man, Toronto.
Serge and Orlando.
I like that. I mean, that a lot.
They're breaking up the core. They are breaking up the core. He was drafted along with Westbrook by the Sonics.
But he was going to be a free agent. They still have to pay those guys. Still have to pay Steven Adams. I like Serge next to Vucevic a lot. Yeah,
I think it'll be a stretch 4. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Play defense. It's going to be really interesting to see who comes back in this trade to OKC, because OKC, even though he's going to be a free agent, that they don't risk next year without Serge Ibaka, without someone pretty serious coming in. So we'll see how that runs. So I don't think there's anything more. Okay. Ooh, Victor Oladipo to Thunder. This is big news, buddy. So I'm going to read it for you, and I love this pick for many reasons. Orlando Magic will send Victor Oladipo. Him and Russell Westbrook will be dominant in the wings. Ilyasova, who's a 6'10" stretch four, and the rights to Sabonis. Well, he was on Orlando because he was part of the Tobias Harris trade, and Sabonis. Ooh.
Sabonis to OKC.
Because then you can start Ilyasova.
Do you like Oladipo next to Westbrook? I don't know about that, man.
I think they're both.
I really don't know about that.
I think it brings in more talent than it sends out.
But chemistry, Phil, chemistry.
Like
These are two wild horses.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but two wild horses on the right team can be the stallions of victory. And with Kevin Durant on the side, and Sabonis is going to be dirty. Like, I think he can come in, play the 4-5. I don't think he'll start. They'll still probably play Ilyasova or maybe pick up a Ryan Anderson. But that is a really interesting trade for me.
OKC swinging. I mean, this is to appease Kevin. You know, Oladipo is a really good player. He's a really good player. I just don't know about the fit, man. I don't.
But you still, I think you had to
do something, right? You had to do something.
Because I'm trying to read all the stuff on Jacob again.
Yeah, I think Oladipo starts. You have to start your talented guys. I mean, they could do the Harden where he comes off the bench, but Oladipo, he's got to start. He's so talented. I mean, man.
But you know what? When they're on, Oladipo and Russell Westbrook will be destructive.
But with three weapons like that on the court at the same time, there's going to be – they want the ball. You know, how are you going to balance that out, Phil?
But I think the difference is I think Oladipo knows he doesn't have to be the guy.
That's true. That's interesting for him to take a step back that way. I mean, if he can develop into like a Manu or early Harden, that would be ridiculous if he would be willing to do that.
And I think it's an insurance policy on Westbrook as well.
Because his contract's up next year. Got to mention that. That's a good point.
Yes. Oh, which is interesting because Orlando got to keep Aaron Gordon, who I really like, the power forward. So they now have Ibaka and Aaron Gordon. So they can play some interesting lineups with Ibaka at power forward, Aaron Gordon at center, and really push the pace. I mean, they don't have still the top talent. But let's not forget that Ibaka is a free agent. So kind of an interesting play. I think Orlando is kind of going to see, is Aaron Gordon going to play into the player we thought he was going to be? Because Ibaka is the player you want next to Vucevic. So let's look at some of these comments we're getting. Bam. Still a success. OKC won the trade. Yeah, I more or less agree with that. I think OKC got enough. Do I think Oladipo starts? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say they let Waiters go. I think Robertson has earned the starting spot, and I think Oladipo is the 1-2 off the bench who's really going to be contend for sixth man of the year next year. When Harden roll off the bench scoring, I think that's exactly right. And Atlanta will take Taurean Prince, which is really interesting because, as I said, he's kind of a why am I blanking? The guy the Raptors just signed from Atlanta.
DeMarre Carroll.
DeMarre Carroll, yeah, he's like a 20-year-old DeMarre Carroll. So if they still have all their other guys, they lost point guard. Be interesting, but I like that pick. He's a 6'8", can play defense, shoot threes. He's a modern wing in the NBA. He's not going to be a superstar for you, but he's going to come in and play lockdown defense, and he's going to be, hopefully in my eyes, a more consistent Harrison Barnes kind of guy. Maybe a little less athletic, but that kind of build, like 6'8", 220, long arms, tough, tenacious. But if they want to do anything, especially in the playoffs, they need a guy to guard LeBron James, and he is one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to guard LeBron James, but he's big enough to try. So let's see. Oh yeah, and Frank Vogel is in Orlando now. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget he now a good player there. So they're gonna have Ibaka, Frank Vogel, interesting players. I like.
Who leads that team? Who's the leader? Oladipo is in a lot of ways.
Say who's their play?
Because he was the guy, right?
Well, there's Peyton, Vucevic.
But I mean, you could say it's going to be Peyton. You know, he seems like the locker room guy because Vucevic.
What's more interesting for me is where your point's coming from, because Oladipo is a scorer for you, right? So for me, why you
Super
do
Mario.
This? Exactly, it opens up shots for Mario Hezonja. So I guess in a simple way, it lets you take your assets and spread them in a way that works a little better. Mm-hmm. So if and they still have the shooting guard they got from Denver, the French guy. I keep forgetting him.
Evan Fournier. Don't Google him. Don't Google him.
who I actually really like. And he can shoot threes. I think that trade, I'm just looking at who else Orlando has left. Let's keep our eyes on. Okay, we're still just with Taurean Prince.
Is he related to Tayshaun Prince, by the way, or is that just similar?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's a huge move by OKC after going into the semifinals. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. So with Prince, there's a lot of ups and downs. People are saying good pick, bad pick. So it seems like everyone's kind of questioning, will Oladipo and Westbrook be able to live together? That's
what I said, of course.
Yeah. So points here, doesn't Ibaka only have 1 year remaining? I think, yes, he only has 1 year remaining, but Orlando still doesn't have a whole lot of guys they're paying a ton of money to. Vucevic has a pretty affordable contract. They took Oladipo's money out of there, so I think it's kind of the player they've wanted all along, so don't be surprised if Ibaka gets a major deal off this. And I think he's an insurance policy on Aaron Gordon. I still think they want Aaron Gordon to be that guy, but if he's not, they know Ibaka is. And in a system where you can play both together, I think he ends up staying there for a while. I think it's a good place, although it'd be really funny if he just went back to OKC, but I doubt that happens. So where were we? So next in the draft.
Let me say this quickly. This helps them sign Kevin Durant, right?
Yes. Because I think ultimately Serge Ibaka was supposed to be a defender, a three-point shooter, and he wasn't consistently that good of a three-point shooter. I think Ilyasova will have an interesting role. I still don't know where those shots come from the forward position. I think Sabonis can be interesting and a nice future pick. I'd like to see how him and Adams play together, but I don't know. I think it's interesting, but if they had taken Scal or Davis instead of Sabonis, I would have been like home run for OKC. Mm-hmm. But because they took the one power forward who's not a good shooter, that's what makes me question it. So I think, I don't know. If they end up signing him, I think this is a better trade for the Magic. I think it's more of a need. Mm-hmm. I really like it on both sides. Like, they always say it's a good trade when both sides kind of hurt a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
All right. Who's on the clock now?
We have number 13. So we're Phoenix is nope. That's Sacramento. So Sacramento, because they traded that 13th pick to Phoenix for Marquise Chris. So we have him again. I think that where they land their point guard, or at least they really hope they do. I'm going to call because I think it's just too big of a need. I like some other guys, but the front court, it just doesn't make any sense with that team. I'm looking Denzel Valentine to be interesting. Deonta Davis-Scal I like. It's in my mind, it's between DeJounte Murray because he's 19 and Wade Baldwin. I think Wade Baldwin's where you go. Demetrius Jackson maybe, but I'm gonna call Baldwin. I think he's who they want, who they need, and they just collected some assets for a player they didn't necessarily want anyways. How we look in here? Sabonis defensively, not really. He's a little bit like I actually like him as a small ball center. He's got decent feet and decent hands. There's a lot of stuff out there. Some makes him look slower, some makes him look taller. Faster. But he never looks like a stretch. Like, can he guard some fours? Sure. And guard some fives? Sure. But he's not a shot blocker. He's not incredibly athletic.
He's not his dad. He's a very different player than his dad.
Well, his dad wasn't crazy athletic either.
Yes, he was. In his 20s, he was ridiculous. He was behind the iron curtain. He would rip rims down, but it could also shoot from 20 feet away. And he's one of maybe the best passing big ever. But we only know him when he was broken down in his 30s playing for Portland. We don't know.
That's what I was about to say, because most people only know him once he's out of those injuries.
Ask Dwight. Our friend Dwight Walton got to play against him in the '88 Olympics. I think he's still got some broken bones from that. He was extremely muscular and extremely athletic.
Yeah. Okay, so interesting. There's a couple columnists saying that Ibaka is not the athlete he once was. He could walk. Oladipo and Sabonis for Ibaka is worth getting the police involved, thinking it's robbery for the.
There are.
Well, I mean, look.
There are some rumors. Sorry? I mean, it's just a rumor that Ibaka is older than we think he is. It's kind of the Thon Maker situation again, right? And so, his career has kind of leveled off the last couple of years. So if he was in fact older, that would make more sense.
Okay. And all right. So for another puzzling draft, the Sacramento Kings have just drafted Georgios Papagiannis, who is a 7'2", 240-pound center out of Greece. I don't know how I think about this one. He was, in terms of where he had him in mock drafts, about 22, one ahead of Wade Baldwin, so I guess. But this is going to be an interesting one to see if they keep him. Since I'm checking Twitter, by the way, just make sure you keep up in the comments there. See if anyone's dropping any bombs in terms of knowledge here. I don't know. I know almost nothing about this guy, and he wasn't on anyone's big radar. Apparently, Bulls and Wolves have not reached an agreement. There's a lot of reaching. I don't know about him.
Well, they swung for the fences last year with Simbular, who I think the draft, and they had him a Canadian 7 foot, huge, over 300-pound center.
I just don't get because you have unless you're playing a trade.
Well,
Cousins
Cousins
is a center, right? He's too big for power forward, so he's not going to play. And Cauley Stein to me is nice, but he again is a center who happens to play power forward. I don't know. I just think unless you trade this pick, I don't know where you're going. And another center. Why are all these centers going this high?
Commodity, right? Boogie plays.
Yeah, but if you want a center, just go to Philly. They have plenty of centers. They'll trade you for 50 cents on the dollar at this point. Yeah,
but Phil, as you said, it's Sacramento. They not a good track record. Not a good track record, man. Okay, who's next on the clock?
Next on the clock. Sorry, I'm going through a million So after Phoenix, we have Chicago, who super like this.
Okay.
Chicago gets its pick between Davis, can bring Denzel Valentine. Couple nice players here, or if they want a point guard, they have those same guys I mentioned before. Chicago, to me, is in a great little position here. They can get a power forward or a center to build for the future, along with Portis. I think, along with Butler, they're in a really good spot. I guess they didn't get that trade done, because if they got that trade done, the trade done for Dunn, I think it would have been obvious you have to pick a power forward here because you just traded for your future point guard. If I was them, I want defense because Bobby Portis is a little bit more of an offensive guy. So I would go front court. I would go with Deonta Davis out of Michigan State, and I think them two growing together would be fantastic. So Chicago, unless they trade it, yeah, this has really gotten weird.
Mm-hmm.
The first couple, 5-6 picks. Oh, there's this great GIF here of DeMarcus Cousins. It's just, it's like quotation marks. We drafted Papa who? He's just like, huh? He's that guy's gonna be oh man. Why are you putting him with? Oh man, with Boogie Cousins. So Chris Dunn in Minnesota. Man, I like that so much. But blah blah blah. I think Chicago ends up taking Davis. Skal makes sense, because I think at this point, in my mind in the draft, after the first kind of 7-8 picks,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going for upside, because the guys everyone wants, quote unquote, and are you're surefire, they're going to be able to play now, they're going to get better later. Those guys are gone.
Yeah.
So you're looking for guys kind of like Bruno Caboclo's at 20, who are okay, we can potentially, be a Thon maker kind of thing, and really, hit some pay dirt. What's interesting actually is after this we have Denver, then Boston again. So we got some playoff contenders coming in, and yeah.
Talking about upside, I talked to Chris Wallace, the Memphis Grizzlies GM, about how he drafted, and because he drafted Paul Pierce with the 10th pick in '98, and he said he goes for whatever is the best, most talented player left on the board. He doesn't care about position. He cares about attitude. He cares about heart. He cares about conditioning. He cares about if they have an NBA-type body. And he cares about if they want it. Do they really want it? And that's what he goes for.
Oh, he would have loved Sabonis then, if he had had the opportunity to take him. And what's interesting, though, is they're not far off for the next pick.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have Chicago's on the board. Then you have Denver, then Boston, and then maybe we can end on your Grizzlies being 17th.
Okay.
Because after that, it's going to be some lesser-known names. Won't be quite as interesting. Just to do some due diligence for your Mr. Wallace. So have they made their pick? Sorry, I've been looking on about 40 boards all at once, trying to do my due diligence for you guys. I'm doing my homework. Trust me, I've been up for days looking into this. This is my NBA Finals.
Yes. Snotty was supposed to join us, but he got wrapped up at work. Justin had to take off. And Alan is having technology problems. Not able to, he's stuck in the fog there. But we're going to keep rolling. Got to keep rolling. Chicago. Okay. So, obviously they just lost Derrick Rose. So they have a lot of things to fill in their situation.
Which is why I don't get why they keep Jimmy Butler. I know that that Justin before was saying how they can kind of, work around him. I don't agree. I think you trade him at the peak of his value, which is now, and you try to get something back. I would really have gone, I don't know. I would have really tried to go and just pressure the Celtics for everything they had. Or
Danny Ainge doesn't work that way.
Well, Danny Ainge doesn't necessarily get the players he wants, right?
Yeah.
One sec.
It's tough. I'm looking at like 3 screens myself.
We just have to make sure we catch these picks for man Thonmaker. You know what's weird? Of all the cities he can go to that he won't get destroyed, I think Milwaukee's not bad because it's quiet. Like it's kind of the same thing for Murray. Yeah. I think these are some. So the Bulls.
Yeah, Bulls take Denzel Valentine.
Yeah, he is a kind of picture Draymond Green with no athleticism. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of guy. He's 6'6", 6'7". Some people say 6'5". I'll have to see his measurements, but decent wingspan, good shooter, good passer. He can do a lot of things. So he can fill in that 2-guard position for them next to Jimmy, or play the 3 next to Jimmy. He's a great counterpoint, doesn't need the ball, but he can do a lot of great things. I guess if they pick up someone else, if they can pick up an Al Horford, mm-hmm. Could start to make sense, but I think it's kind of a strange pick. I don't love his overall upside, although to me he's a safe player. Mm-hmm. Like when guys come in and they have that kind of overall talent and can do a bunch of things, like you're not worried about him fumbling the ball. He's a good dribbler. You're not worried about he's a good rebounder for his size, good this. He's just not elite at anything, and because he lacks a lot of the requisite athleticism we normally see at the 2-guard. But you know what? If they have their other stars and they don't pay attention to him, he can knock down 3. So he keeps people honest. I mean, the one thing they do have between Portis and all this, like they've got some shooters. So, I mean, I don't love it, but I would have always swung for the fences. Mm-hmm. I think not enough teams are doing that at this point. And I think what's really interesting mm-hmm. is where these guys are falling. A bunch of these guys I like I've just named those 2 point guards and those 2 forwards. We are now at number 15, Denver, then Boston, then and Denver has 19 as well, by the way.
Okay, Denver is pretty stacked for their starting lineup. They just need,
But they don't have that superstar, right? They have guys like like a lot of their players. I like Moutier, a lot of their.
Okay. Moutier can kind of grow into that. I worry about Gallo.
I like Murray more than Moutier as a star, really, personally.
Gallo is aging. Was he 27, 28? And he's had a lot of injuries over the last 3 years. So that would be a position I would look to replace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that can make some sense. Although Gallo, you could probably trade for something decent mm-hmm. Because he's one of those guys. He can shoot threes, right? And to a playoff contender, he really makes a lot of sense. But I'm really, really, really interested, just because I can't believe these guys have fallen this far, to see where Denver goes. But the funny thing is they have forwards, although the 2 guys I like are power forwards. And who's their power forward? Kenneth Faried, who have they talked about trading? Yeah. Kenneth Faried.
I would see Faried going. I don't think they need him anymore.
So I'm going to call either Skal Labissière or Deonta Davis landing in Denver. And don't be overly shocked if the other one falls to 19 and they just swoop them up. That's a really good position. Although I don't know if the other one gets past Boston or Memphis, because both those guys, Boston could use a shot blocker and a shooter, and Memphis could use some youth in the front court. Even if they sign back all their guys, they want someone who can take over for Gasol and Randolph long term, who can come and spell 20, 25 minutes of athleticism, shot blocking, that kind of thing.
Thonmaker is trending in Canada on Twitter right now.
I would think so. All right. So it keeps making. All right. So people are more or less liking the trade for OKC, it seems. The Denver Nuggets will pick Juan Hernangomez.
Do you know him?
I do not. Wow. See, this is always what kind of worries me. When guys fall so bad, it's like, what happened, right? Like something had to have been said or done. Where is? I'm looking for Juan there on the. He must have been higher than this. I'm in the 40s now. Like, there's no way Fall's that bad. Sorry, I'm just trying to give you guys a. Oh, there you go. So a small forward, power forward. So he is 20 years old, 6'9", 220. And he's a small forward, power forward. Well, maybe they're trying to replace Gallo at this point, because he was a decent three-point shooter. I don't know too much about him. He played in Spain, so another international contributor there in the in the Denver War Room. They seem to not be afraid, kind of like Toronto, to go the international flavor. Oh, did we? I'll give Mark props here. His light keeps changing. All right, so just going down here. We're getting towards the end of our coverage. I know it's been pretty crazy, guys. If you guys been hanging on this the whole time, thanks so much. Oof, this is a fantastic quote. Boogie Cousins saying, "Lord, give me strength." That's amazing. I'm going to have to quote this guy for all you. Save this for a bit later. And Mark's not doing so well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think DeMarcus is too happy with this. So many centers, and they had all sorts of wings and point guards. Like, I don't get how they didn't take Baldwin at all. I thought that was just insane how they didn't take a point guard when that was such a need for them. But he seems happy. Yeah, so the internet is going crazy because he is not happy. And Oh, interesting play. So if you think about it, Kevin Durant now is going to play power forward. I like that. Very interesting play. So it slides up. Oh, and that's how they think they can win long term and get some more strength on the wing. I'm gonna let Mark back in here.
So Boogie's going crazy?
All right, cool. Got you back in. Yeah, Boogie is not happy. He's like, Lord, give me strength.
Yeah.
So he's not happy having another center going on there. I wouldn't be either. I can't believe so many of these guys.
So you were saying Kevin Durant's going to play the 4. That's pretty interesting.
Well, because if you think about it, they didn't really bring in a 4, and if they want, they can start Oladipo and then take Robertson, who's played really well for them last year's playoffs, and slide him to the 3, 6-7, and then if he can continue to hit the 3, Oladipo can. That means there's a lot of shooters around a guy who's very mobile like Steven Adams, and Steven Adams, I've been saying, has a more than adequate interior game who has not been allowed to show.
Of course.
And I think he's going to average a few more points next year.
Yeah. Well, he'll need to. He'll absolutely need to. So it's interesting. And there's still the option to take Oladipo off the bench, so.
Oh, they can do so many things here. I think that's a really interesting play. I just don't get all these reaches. There's it's going to be a bunch of wait and see, which it always is, I guess.
Yeah.
But
what do you know much about Juan Hernangomez? Sorry.
No, he's one of those guys that honestly, I was going through a ton of them, and he just never came off anyone's lips. I've watched a ton of podcasts, watched a ton of drafting, and he's, he looks like a 6'9" guy who's doing well. He's going to be a shooter, and I think I'm guessing he's there to take the pick away to take Gallo away, because I think Gallo or Wilson Chandler is out of there.
Yeah, I forgot about Wilson Chandler.
No, you can't forget about Wilson Chandler. I think Wilson Chandler's forgotten about Wilson Chandler.
Who's next on the board?
Next on the board, we have the Boston Celtics.
Okay.
Which, and again, they have some nice, like, I'm really, really, really cross my fingers that Masai Ujiri is trying to get this 16th pick. Because if he can do that and land me my Davis or Labissière, I'll let him go. He can have his tall white hope center that backs up whoever and is friends with another irrelevant player, or their point guard they drafted last year. Sure, but I think this is where Boston starts getting creative, because although if I'm Boston, I don't trade this pick. I would totally take Davis and not think twice about it. Man, 4 a.m. I'm telling you, Mark, this is why people love the draft. It's so incredible how people love the NBA for various reasons, right? Some people like the dunks, some people like the passing, shooting, some people like, the kind of J.R. Smith type personalities, and some people, crazy as myself, love this world. It's the building, it's where it all begins. This is where franchises go from being irrelevant and garbage like Philly and Minnesota to a few years later being the teams that we're all talking about, like, watch out for these guys.
Well, the game's completely gone global. Our friend here is he's watching the show from Turkey, and our good friend Moto, who lives in Switzerland now. I mean, he watches all the games, especially the playoffs, at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. It really has become a global game for you to stay up or get up that early to watch basketball or a draft. It's really spoken how it's grown monumentally, and especially since the Dream Team in '92. Everything really changed then. The game just exploded globally.
Yeah. Oh, man. This is yeah, I can't wait to see where this one goes. Like, I'm going to keep watching this for yeah, there's like a Gary Washburn, some guys from the Globe there in Boston saying, are the Celtics really going to pass on Deonta Davis? He's that guy I can't believe. Like, look, he's young and he needs work. I get that. But I think you just do that. So our friend Josh Eberle here is putting his big winners of the night being Philadelphia. So they got the best player in the draft, the Lakers. I got second best player in the draft from the OKC Thunder because of and the biggest losers, Orlando. I guess if you thought OKC won the trade, then Orlando lost, and Atlanta. I know he didn't like their Prince draft. I think the Prince is one of those players that he's one of those complimentary. Like, I'm rarely a guy who thinks you should draft to just like finish off a team, just like seal it. But he is one of those guys, and I think the only way he makes sense is if they re-sign all their guys. I don't know. I think it's a tough pick, but I really want to see where Boston goes. So is anyone letting us know here? Okay. Sorry, guys. So yeah, Buddy Hield. And I'm already trying to think of who's going to win Rookie of the Year. And that's a whole nother conversation we'll have on a different date.
Right.
But I mean, without kind of giving away too much, is there kind of a name that you thought fell well, and you can kind of expand and change your mind later?
Yeah, to me, it's Jamal Murray. I think he's really underrated. I don't think people have seen how good he is, and he's fallen into a really good spot. That's my pick so far.
Yeah, without getting into it, 'cause it's going to be a good show. I agree with you, and I think I'll just go for one other person just to make it interesting, although I could argue for what you said very strongly. I'm going to go with, he's going to take a ton of shots.
Boston just made their pick.
Okay.
I'm going to butcher. I'm going to butcher this name. Jurashan Yabusel. I just butchered that. Number 15 pick, Celtics.
Ooh, I like him. So let's break him down. He was actually an interesting pick. Sorry. It definitely is there's a lot of guys who I thought would have gotten picked by now who are not. And to me, this is like, okay. So he is, wow, he's a power forward. He's 6'8", 270.
Okay.
He's a big boy out of France. Not much on him. He was ranked on Draft Express's mock draft as 32nd. Mm-hmm. I think it's really funny considering it's a short, big power forward. Like, that's all they have in Boston, right? Like, Jared Sullinger is this dude. I mean, maybe there's some other things, but I thought they whiffed on that one. I know, exactly. Our friend here, Amon Plab, is definitely on the ball, and he's definitely agreeing with us. I was saying what the F as well, but I'm trying to keep it PG for the kids. Yeah, I thought that it's hurting me because, like, I don't want to drop this until Davis gets picked, and I'm just like, where is this going to happen? He's one of those guys that, and Labissière, like, there's still a point guard to have. So who's you're about to ask me who's next, because you never make it easy on me. Now we have we have your Grizzlies. Your Grizzlies with 2 power forwards available and 2 point guards available, who I really like, plus other guys. Mm-hmm. And after that, how interesting is this? Then it's Detroit, who with 2 shooting power forwards, mm-hmm. make it really interesting next to Andre Drummond. Two power forwards who can stretch the floor are young. And then you're back to Denver, mm-hmm. in case any of those guys slid to make up for that mistake.
And Stan Van Gundy has already said he's picking whoever's the best guy left. He doesn't care about position.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I totally agree. After even 12 or whatever, I think you just do that, and you make it work, because after that, like I said, it's swinging for the fences. Whoever you think is your dude, you run with that guy.
I'm looking for talk on Jimmy Butler. Seems to have wound down a bit.
Seems to have died. Yeah, although I don't know, because Dunn, for as much as we want to see this talk, Dunn is a guy that Tom Thibodeau has wanted since day one. Mm-hmm. So he gets his guy, but what we're going to start hearing is Ricky Rubio talk now.
Yeah.
So I'm still hoping I hear the Levine Rubio for Nerlens Noel talk. I think both teams. No, I know it sounds funny, but Philadelphia would clear away one of their centers, and they would get a point guard and a shooting guard. And Zach LaVine has tons of potential. If you do that, and then you pin Nerlens Noel next to Karl Anthony Towns, who are going to block every shot available, and I mean, ideally, wouldn't be giving up. There's just that hole at the 2 guard, but then you fill that in with a veteran. I don't think that's weird at all. So let's just see, because I know we promised we'd go to your Grizzlies, and then we'll call it a night here, just because we've been on the air for a while.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. Jeez.
Yeah, we're dedicated. Memphis selects Vanderbilt guard Wade Baldwin. I think that's fantastic. So Wade Baldwin, as I said, 6'4", 205, muscular, 6'11" wingspan. They're definitely covering their bases in case Conley walks. And I agree again with our caller here. How did Labissière or Davis slip this far? I have zero idea, my friend. I completely agree with everything you've said. You definitely know your basketball, my friend. And you're definitely a Woj follower. He's given us all of our updates that way. I thought this was interesting. Nick Stauskas is interviewing Ben Simmons for TSN. Stauskas.
Yeah, he'll be a journalist. He definitely has that. He's broadcaster skills in him. I don't know if he's going to turn out as a basketball player. I had high hopes. He didn't get very many minutes.
He's still young, a bit of a ball handler, can shoot. And look, the one thing they didn't have last year was a distributor, right? So no matter if your name is, if it's him, no matter if you're Okafor, it's tough to be an offensive player when you're not being given the ball in a beneficial way, right? So I think having, man, they're just killing Toronto on the internet.
Yeah.
This pick.
Yeah, I know.
Bill Simmons says OKC robbed Orlando. Yeah, people are big fans of this. Yeah, it's funny when the trade went down, I wasn't even thinking of shifting KD to the 4, but they played some of their best basketball when KD was that.
Yeah, it's a good spot for him.
Yeah, look at this guy. This guy. I wish I could give you a thumbs up. I can give you a star. I'm definitely gonna have you in on some of our other stuff here. Where are we? Celtics took. Yeah, so Bill Simmons is not the biggest fan of what the Celtics are doing in the draft. And Bill Simmons knows his stuff. So, although supposedly so does Danny Ainge. So who knows basketball better, Bill Simmons or Danny Ainge? I feel like that's almost a real question.
Bill wrote a book. Danny wrote a career. So it depends what you want from it.
Yeah. RJ, what's up, man? Oh, is that your name, RJ?
RJ in Turkey has been helping us out a lot tonight.
Sick.
Appreciate it.
A roaming reporter. So apparently Detroit is closely looking at Marquette's Henry Ellerson with the 18th pick. So Henry Ellerson is a 6'11", like legitimately tall and can really stroke the basketball, power forward. Not the best defensively, not really that swift. I think he's a center. I don't think he's a power forward, so I don't love the look next to Drummond. But he's the more seasoned. Like, he's ready to win ahead of Skal and Davis right now. So if Detroit thinks they're going to win or contend soon, I think it's a poor pick to pick that. But I understand why they do it. And apparently they will. Oh, man. The Pistons. Because while they're... it's so funny how people are so happy that that apparently the Boston Celtics screwed up this draft. I don't think they did. I really like how they so just allow me to pass some tweets here. Cool. Well, you can tweet us actually. I don't know if it shows our handles there. Yeah, it shows our handles under our names there. So Sporting Phil Montreal Mark. Hit us up on Twitter. Actually, if you give us a follow, give me a follow back and continue that conversation. Because we're obviously looking for this. Bill Simmons says, I hope Chad Ford gives the Magic an F minus tomorrow, or just a G. Funny statement. All right, so on the board, can't believe they took him. Sorry, I was looking at a bunch of guys for you here. So they picked, so we have Pistons. You want to call her a night, Mark, or you want to keep going?
Let's do the Pistons pick out of respect for Stan, who is basically the overlord in a good way of that franchise, basically runs all basketball operations as president. basically CEO and coach when he took over 2 years ago. So picked Stanley Johnson last year, who's been an amazing pickup for those guys. He knows what he's doing.
It's true. Although interestingly, we have Brooklyn picking at 20. They got that pick from the trade that happened today with the Indiana Pacers to get to rebuild.
Right.
When's the last time the Nets were relevant? I'm trying to think.
Richard Jefferson played for them back in the day with Vince and Jason Kidd, 99-ish. Yeah. No, sorry, this was like 2002, 2003-ish.
True. Huh. Our friend RJ is saying he's tweeting us here, but I'm not seeing anything. Looking at my notification. Sorry, RJ. Trying to get this going. But yeah, we want to do the due diligence for the Pistons. I really like that pick of Baldwin for the Grizzlies. I think he can really step in and be perfect part of that culture. He's tough, he's physical, he's mature. He plays exactly into the Memphis Grizzlies style of basketball.
Who's the best player left on the board right now?
In my mind, it is still a few guys I like, to be very honest. Mm-hmm. But I have to say Deonta Davis. I mean, when you look at a guy whose comps are kind of like Antonio Davis, Derek Favors, he's young, I get it, but he's great size, can shoot, rebounds well, block shots, is active, good hands, good feet. I mean, outside of needing a bit of coaching, I like the guy. And when you're drafting this low, like if I'm the Pistons, he's for sure my pick. Mm-hmm. For sure. Scal would be number 2 because right now he's a bit better shooter, but Scal seems a bit of a stiff. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see, they lost Ilyasova mid-season. They have Tobias Harris, obviously Andre Drummond, Rich Jackson. So they have a decent core, as I mentioned, Stanley Johnson. So they just need more pieces.
Yeah, they do, but I still think that they're in an increasingly small league. A guy like Andre Drummond's his value is going to drop a bit. So I think, like, I really like him. Not taking anything away from him, but I think guys who can go in there, and another thing I like about Davis is his ability to play center because of his bulk and his shoulder size. So if you have to take out Drummond because he can't hit free throws, then you bring in Davis and he can play your center. So you're never having to be super tiny.
I'm hearing Henry Ellenson going to Detroit.
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing. Again, it's not a terrible pick. He was like way up there in terms of drafts. Like he's been falling. But yeah. But he's a charismatic guy. And look, he fits what they need in terms of a big who can shoot. But it's a funny way. So this Ryan Baker is saying, it appears what I smell is on point. I'm told by solid source that Jimmy Butler, T-Wolf's talk, was Tibbs trying to stick it to the Bulls. So maybe it was one of those trade talks that they had never had any intention of actually making it work out, unless the Bulls were just going to give them everything.
Okay, so this is going to be our last pick here with Detroit.
Yeah, I'm hearing from everyone, including, I'm pretty sure it's Ellerson, man. with the 19. Yeah, they did. So the NBA on ESPN. So he is. Yep. So he is there. Yep. So he has a power forward. They have a lot of guys going forward, but you know what? That is the top 18th pick. And Mark, I think we both need to call it a night.
Yeah.
Because we've been having a good thing, and in all honesty, all the guys after this point are going to be just guys, little geeks like myself, because it's not the biggest names. We want to thank you guys for joining us for another episode here on hoopslounge.com. This is this year's draft preview. Had a couple of guests. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll have lots of more stuff coming on, including some reactions with other guys in weeks to come. And look out for much, much more. Yeah, fun hanging with you, man. Add us on Twitter and social media, and we'll continue it there. Enjoy. Have a great night, guys.